years ago, a door was opened in my mind. I bet you don't even know. I knew you changed me forever. Right or wrong, I'd never be the same again. Felt this way for so long. Did you mean what you said, more or less? Oh, I've got a thing for you. Is it all in my head, must I confess? You know this is nothing new. When we draw a circle, we anchor to the earth. We're in a golden spiral. Please stay with me there. Oh, I've got a thing for you. I just got a thing for you. Did you mean what you said, more or less? Oh, I've got a thing for you. Is it all in my head, must I confess? You know this is nothing new. Oh, I've got a thing for you. I just got a thing for you. Did you mean what you said, more or less? Oh, I've got a thing for you. Is it all in my head, must I confess? You know this is nothing new. Oh, I just got a thing for you. Thing for you. Thing for you. I just got a thing for you. Thing for you. Thing for you. I just got a thing for you.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. I hope all of you are well. God bless you all who are a part of my kindred people of God. We'll get back to you in just a few.
I'm talking forever. Just need some time. 'Cause I'm fresh out of Korea to speak my mind. I can see a highway road across our venture brain. Has a last straw broken? Do you still feel the same? You wanna forget something bigger than the ball. Strange love. And we tear every page, leave nothing left to waste. Strange love. said I would be there. My work just held me back. So we go through the motion and swear on our life. No one else can miss on me. No one else has your life. I'm still so far away. You got me standing in the outfield. going on. 'Cause I'm hurting, 'cause I'm bleeding, going crazy. I don't need you, just cut me. You don't help me. Now because I'm a girl, you need to help me. When inside, you want to help me, but I have the care. I have the care. Baby, I'm enough. Yeah. Now because I'm a girl, you need to help me. When inside, you want to help me, but I have the care. I have the care. Baby, I'm enough. Hey. I've been looking for something that would give me peace of mind. You made me insecure. I pretend that it's good when I'm not. 'Cause I'm hurting, 'cause I'm bleeding, going crazy. I don't need you, just cut me. You don't help me. Now because I'm a girl, you need to help me. When inside, you want to help me, but I have the care. I have the care. Baby, I'm enough. Yeah. Now because I'm a girl, you need to help me. When inside, you want to help me, but I have the care. I have the care. Baby, I'm enough. Hey. Because I'm a girl, you need to help me. When inside, you want to help me, but I have the care. I have the care. Baby, I'm enough. Hey.
All right, I apologize for you all's wait. I will be with you all shortly. right. Hello, everyone. God bless you all. I hope all of you have been well. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I apologize that I didn't speak to anyone on Thanksgiving. I had my own thing going on, and it took away my time. I apologize for that. But I hope all of you did have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And gosh, there's so much that's went on that I wanted to make a list, and as usual, I didn't. And it's only because I was running around to the last minute to get everything done, and I actually had a little more of a hustle type of day today. Last prep day was fairly mellow. It was a nice, easy pace. It was a really easy day, but today was a little more of a hassle, a little more of a hustle, and got it all did, though, and I had to, the other big thing was I had to edit 900 plus pictures. So these are all new stuff that has went on YouTube and on the internet in general in the last, whatever it's been, maybe 30 days or the last 20 days or something. And so, and a lot of you're going to see a lot of quotes tonight. The comment section's been doing really nice. Been seeing some real nice comments. And of course, these are from other video or other YouTubers. So, it's not any of my people that visit the stream, but hello to all of you. And I'm going to say hello to all of you in a minute who've already chimed in. I have not done one of those yet where I go back through all of my own stuff and try to collect everybody's comments and build those. These are just ones I run across while I'm cruising through YouTube, checking out the most latest info, whatever. And the comment section is getting better and better. So you're going to see a lot of comments tonight. So I say quotes, but really they are quotes, but they're screenshots of great comments, And so I have a bunch of those here in the slideshow as well. And they're just scattered throughout. So it's not like you're going to have to watch, a whole hour and a half straight of comments before it goes back to some other things. It's just like maybe 10 at a time or something like that. And really good ones, though. You'll see some real good ones. And also, a lot of our YouTubers have really been putting out some great stuff. Great stuff. We're living in a time right now where even though we're not getting a lot of the things that we wanted, we're super disappointed in Trump and a lot of the things that he hasn't done that he was supposed to do. There have been some mild victories, and though we shouldn't harp on those as though we're #winning, we should at least, keep those in mind. And so there are only a few, and they are just slight wins, and they may not actually end up being wins at all. But the bottom line is they wouldn't have even been entertained had the Jews allowed our government to go the other, or continue going the other way. Now, granted, I will give props to the YouTube community. I think we caused a lot of influence to swing a different way than the Jews originally planned. And I think even right now, the Jews are having a hard time keeping us wrangled the way they would like. I think they're in blitz mode right now to some degree. Not in Samson, option blitz mode, but maybe a DEFCON 3 level. So they're kind of scrambling everywhere. Trying to buy up all the media companies like they've been trying to do, and trying to pay influencers, $7,000 per post. That's been the big, meme for a while now. We've all been laughing about since they got busted about that. And, you add it all up and it's just, it looks as though we're heading toward doom, and we are. But these little mini victories that we've had, right, that are very slight and little and in the big scheme of things are perhaps inconsequential for the most part. we should be thankful for them, and it's Sabbath. So as y'all think of the many wins that we've had, if you post one in the chat, that would be cool. And I'll acknowledge those wins that we've had. And I just saw a new one from Trump. Now, of course, all these things that Trump does, you know, he knows that one random leftist judge anywhere in the country will just out of nowhere stand up and go, nope, and block whatever it is that he's declared, right? But supposedly, Trump is so pissed about the girl that supposedly died that was in the National Guard. Now, I don't want to officially say that this girl didn't get killed, but remember, the government pulls these types of hoaxes. And it wasn't a random nog attacking a random white lady on the street, which is absolutely normal. And I don't mean normal in a good way. I mean a regular occurrence that is a real occurrence. The government is known for, and we talk about all the time on this channel, how the government stages their own events of death hoaxes and stuff. So this could very well be another assassination hoax or death hoax, whatever. But what it did is, allegedly, and this is what the news and everybody's declaring, so take it with a grain of salt, but allegedly Trump is posted a thing and declared that he is banning all third world country immigration. And if that really happens, for real, which I don't see it happening for real, if it did, if it could be proven in our eyes that mass deportation was really occurring, which it isn't, but if I could see it for real with my own eyes and feel it in our job places and in our grocery stores and at the intersections, and our kids would notice it at the schools because all of a sudden their class would be 3/4 empty and it would be just them and a couple other white kids that used to just polka dot the room. And now it's just them white kids in the room. You know, if it really was like that and I could really see it like that, and instead every day when a school gets out and I'm stuck in traffic somewhere, all I see is a sea full of black hair surrounding one little white girl or one little white boy. You know, and of course, since they're surrounded by them, what are they doing? They're trying to buddy with them all and win their approval. You can just tell by their mannerisms, their gait, you know, or whatever it is, as they walk and chat with them and stuff. And it's just so obvious, you know. And who wouldn't, though? I mean, if you're one white kid and you're born and raised and go to school and are forced to go to the school and you're surrounded by nothing but brownoids all around you, what are you going to do except try to make sure that some of them, or as many of them as you can possibly manage to get to like you, you know? That would be your only goal of survival, really, or in your only method of survival. It's not like some white girl can walk around there going, "Ooh, get away from me, all you brownies," you know? Don't talk to me, Tyrone. She wouldn't be able to do all that because right away she'll be a target of attack. And she knows that, and so do all the boys. So, of course, our white kids, you know, we give them a lot of flack for becoming wiggers and listening to rap and all the stuff. And I'm guilty of it on this channel. I give them a lot of grief for that. Talk a lot of smack about our own people about that. And I'm very forward aggressive about how much of a cucked failure they are to our people per each one of them who listens to that garbage. But I even need to reconsider how aggressive I am about it, because I have to remember always in the back of my mind that our poor children are being forced to be raised up in. They don't know anything else. They've never been in real America. They've never seen it, never felt it, never experienced it. It doesn't exist anymore. And so here we are expecting them to try to somehow get an education, which is already the most difficult thing to do anyway, when you're trying to physically develop and mentally develop at the same time. And now you're having to defend yourself at all times against hostile non-whites that surround you on all sides. That's what our children, every one of our white children is growing up that way, who live in like a working class environment and have to go to regular schools. You know, of course, the super elite, wealthy, ultra wealthy people, and the ones who are just well enough off and willing to sacrifice a huge chunk of their income every year toward having their kids in really high dollar schools, you know, and even the highest dollar of schools. See, that's the thing. We all have this misconception that the highest dollar schools don't have nogs in them. But guess what? All of those high dollar schools also are cucked just as much as the rest of them. And in some cases worse. So they accept blacks into those most high dollar schools. So as white people, you're in this real conundrum where if your kid doesn't go to some like, you know, Amish school or something, they pretty much are forced to have blacks around them. Whether it's some broke as a joke blacks, and it wouldn't matter if they're rich or not, but they're not going to be. They're going to be broke as a joke blacks, EBT blacks, as usual, as always, that are going to this ultra expensive school. Let's say you were paying $1,000 a week, you know, for your kid to go to school at this really expensive Christian school. Well, guess what? They've already let in, you know, 30 or 20 or 50 or whatever, blacks specifically, not other non-whites too. They got plenty of those they've allowed in too for free or for cheaper than you had to pay and your parents have to pay, but or that you would have to pay for your kid. But blacks specifically, they'd have 40 or 50 or 60, who knows? I don't know how big the school would be, depending on how, you know, it would depend on how big the school is, how many they would add. But all of them are going there for free. The blacks are going there for absolutely free. $0 and 0 cents. You know? And it's the same way with these brand new neighborhoods they're building all over the place. All these brand new neighborhoods, they're clearing entire forests in the middle of the rural areas where white people enjoy a nice country living, quiet, peaceful, no crime, no walkers, no home invasion stuff. They're out in the woods. And yet, they're clearing entire forests. These same, quote, tree hugging, save the whales, humans are the filth of the earth, the parasites of the earth, shame on us, leftists, will happily clear an entire forest and build a brand new cardboard box neighborhood, whether it's communist apartments or it's big, nice, giant houses that are just still made out of cardboard. And they'll charge white people and trick white people into paying $600, $700, $900,000 to buy one of these garbage cardboard boxes. They're big, they're nice, they're spacious, they look nice, they're brand new. But they're junk. And they're slopped together by inferior, often illegal workers. And I don't care about the legal versus illegal, by non-white workers. And so there are home inspectors here on YouTube that you can visit. I might do a clip of them one day. I don't really want to do that to them because, you know, then they'll be like, oh my gosh, this white supremacist is like using my videos. I don't want to be connected to that. So that's why I probably wouldn't. But you can go look for yourself, home inspectors on YouTube who go visit brand new construction homes that haven't even been moved into yet. And they get hired to come inspect it. And you would not believe how horrifically bad and dangerous even these brand new cookie cutter cardboard box styrofoam wall houses are made by, I would say, mostly Mexicans now. The architecture design, the engineering of the homes is done very well because it's done by white architects. But the people who decide what materials everything's made out of that aren't load-bearing and that aren't critical for structure rigidity, they penny pinch it down to being styrofoam walls, OFC particle board or wafer wood board. And so you have this paper thin walled cardboard box house that looks very nice. It looks very presentable, but it's made out of cheap, thin garbage materials overall total. The total package of it is. And it's slopped together by the dumbest, lowest IQ. Remember, anybody that's high IQ enough is thriving in Mexico, right? So anyway, the thing is, the point of it all is that these miniature wins we're having, we need to be grateful for those, and we need to be reminded every time we review all of this terrible stuff happening to our people. You know, the slideshow tonight's going to show a lot of terrible things that have happened to our people recently, and it is a burden on all of our hearts. I realize that, and I live with it too. All right. And so, but what we have to always be reminded by all of this is that our Holy Bible our Holy Bible told us this thousands of years ago, literally over 1,000 years ago. Our Holy Bible told us this, and really it prophesied these things even further back than that. And so this has all already been explained to us in our Holy Bible. This has already been told to us in advance. We had upfront, in advance knowledge that all of this was going to come to pass. So as we watch more and more of our people be destroyed, specifically because of our race and the envy of the non-whites of our race, let that always remind you, even though it's sorrowful and it's, you know, it's dreary to live through all of this, you know, but let it also remind you to be thankful and grateful that you've been blessed to be a part of this martyrdom race, this trial of God's favorite new creation that the entire earth was made for, and all that is in it was made for. And so Sabbath, you know, it not only is it important to please our God, because that's obviously the most important thing, is obey. The very first thing you have to do with God is obey him. But it's also a day every week for us to not only discuss the bad things that have been happening to our people, but also to rejoice that we are those people that get to be saved in the end. You know, they all understand. Only white people don't understand this, and I've explained this in many streams. I've explained this in multiple videos before I ever could stream, that they all understand, and only white people do not understand, that only we are going to be harvested away by Jesus Christ. All the non-whites already understand this, and this is why they cosplay as Christians to try to we-was our identity, or we-was our religion away from us. This is why they despise our religion otherwise. And so it is every week. Sabbath is this, not only is it a reminder for us to be grateful to our God and thank him and give him his proper gratitude. And I hope some of you have already done your Sabbath prayers. If it isn't quite Sabbath where you live yet, then hey, I totally understand. But you know the deal. Get it done early, which means first thing. And that's just a friendly reminder. I'm not telling you what to do. It's just a friendly reminder that that's how all of our godly ancestors before us behaved with the Lord and in their mortal trial. And so all of our days, we should long to emulate what our godly ancestors in the Bible, how they behaved, how they performed their processes. You know what I mean? And when you pray on Sabbath, make sure that your Sabbath prayer, that your official Sabbath prayer, is very itemized and not rushed in any way, and thoughtful and well thought out. Not just thoughtful, but well thought out. And make sure that you articulate your words very well to him. Use good diction. And the reason why is because it's respect. Okay? If you were to stand before God's throne, and really it would be that you would be bowing and kneeling before his throne. If you were blessed to be close enough proximity to our holy God that you would be bowing or kneeling before him at his throne, he gave you a mouth. He could have allowed you to be born with cleft palate, or he could have made you be born mute, or he could have made you be born in such a way that you can't speak for some reason. You might be able to make noise, but you can't articulate. Instead, he gave you not only a mouth, but he gave you the ability to speak excellently. Right? So, of all times you're ever supposed to speak as correctly as possible, it should definitely be when you speak to the Lord. And I'm only stressing that seemingly silly thing because it's very easy to be lazy with speech. You know, I'm guilty of it for sure. And so I have to always remind myself when I do streams to make sure I speak up and speak out, speak with a little bit of push, and make sure that I don't fall into becoming lazy with my speech. And I know many of you who have visited the streams after I'm like 5 or 6 hours in, my whole mind and everything is slowed way down by then. And I'm waiting on people to post something in the chat also, and that kind of slows the pace down more. And then next thing you know, I'm getting lazy with my speech. And so when we're interacting with our Lord, though, in prayer, we should definitely be considering ourselves to be bowed before his throne, right in front of his feet. And in that case, you're going to want to make sure that you speak very correctly. And another reason for it is because it forces your brain to actually be applying itself to the process of prayer. All right? If you're not careful, you could just be in auto speech mode, autopilot mode, going through the prayer that you say typically, and not be giving it much of your thought while you're doing it. Be running more on memory of it than actually caring about the fact that you're saying it to him. And so by forcing yourself to speak as correctly as possible, that is, and pronounce everything correctly as possible, that is a way of forcing your mind to always stay on the task while you're praying to him. It makes sure that your prayer to him truly is coming from you at that moment and from your heart at that moment, as opposed to from your memory. And, I've seen it before. I've watched Catholics, not to jab at them right out of the gate here in the stream, but I've watched certain Catholic processes, right? And when they're doing their prayer things and stuff, they're like almost rolling their eyes as they rattle it off in memory, right? They're not like deep in thought, and that's not why their eyes are rolling in their head or something like that. They are just straight up in their mind going, blah, 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 as they're rattling it off from memory. And so that is not what a real prayer to God on Sabbath should be, or any prayer to God should ever be. It should always be coming from your mind, from your soul, from your heart, all at once. And so by using good pronunciation, speaking out loud to him, go somewhere where you're not going to bother anyone, and that way you can speak, normally and without laziness in your speech. And that's that. You can do a proper prayer. Anyway, that's just a little thing on a side note there. We'll get back to the issue at hand. But Sabbath is a time for you to remind yourself, after you've already remembered that it's Sabbath and given God his glory and grace, or glory and gratitude and thank yous and thankfulness and everything, you then should also reflect on the fact that you are a part of his elect. Remember, we didn't do anything to deserve it. We are literally DEI hires of God's. But he created us, so it's not like we just came stumbling along or just existed. God made us to be his new favorite creation. We are the most updated favorite thing God has made. And he made this entire earth and everything that's in it for our benefit and for our well-being and for our pleasure and for our usefulness. And so, or use, I should say, for our use. And so, God wants us to prosper. God wants us to do well. He wants us to thrive. He wants us to all have abundance of things. And that's why many of you perhaps do. Whether you may feel like you don't or not, many of you have plenty of food in the fridge, plenty of money in the bank. Of course, everybody would prefer to have way more money than we have. But, a lot of people in our group are intelligent, high IQ, and they have, because of all the things they've already long ago had to figure out a way to navigate through life through this anti-white, campaign that's been going on. And many of you perhaps have already lost a job to a non-white before, maybe more than once. And so because of that, some of us have already been forced to figure out a way to do even better for ourselves than maybe we originally would have, had it not been for all of that pressure. And so some of us have pushed ourselves along where we are not as worried and as broke and all of that all of the time as, some other white people are, because of this anti-white campaign that's happened, which is also inflicting them. It kept them from getting into college because they were given all the freaking spaces to the non-whites instead. And then because they didn't get into college, they didn't get to end up doing the only thing that they had a passion that they thought they might want to do as a youngster. And so there went that out the window. So they got a job at the local store in their sleepy town, and they've been stuck there ever since. And that happened to millions of our white people, especially white men, because remember, the whole idea behind the colleges was to mix our white girls with blacks and with other non-white males. So they would always accept all the white girls. All of our white girls get accepted somewhere, especially when they show their picture and they see their picture and they see, oh man, this is a good-looking white girl, especially if they're the blonde. If you're Colors of Christ, oh man, you're definitely in. And so then, once you're there, they encourage you to be a cheerleader for them because you're so pretty and all this. Even if you're a ditz and can't dance or anything, they encourage them to be cheerleaders because they want them to be on the sidelines cheering on the Nogs, because they know that eventually the girls will all get duped into sleeping with the Nogs. And so it's a perfect engine that the Jews have going with our daughters. And because of this operation, millions of white men who are already perhaps in their 30s and 40s nowadays have been living and having to exist through this anti-white campaign that's been going on for, honestly, it's been happening for a lot more than just 10 years or whatever, like all the Trump conservatives blame it on. Some Trump conservatives blame it on starting with Obama. Some blame it on starting with Biden. But really, it's been going on since the 70s. They've been doing token diversity hiring since the 70s, and then they got worse with it in the 80s, but it was still so insignificant of an amount compared to the population of white people we still had in the 80s that it was inconsequential, seemingly. And no one noticed it. No one even knew it was happening unless you were a white person that was immediately interacting with that situation, like the blacks were right there where you were, working with you, whatever. Otherwise, you had no clue that was happening if you were a typical American. And then the 90s is when they ramped it up mega hardcore, and that's also when they opened the floodgates. That's when we say the mud flood started, was 1990. And so once 1990 hit, they started flooding us with Mexicans and Arabs, and and they put them in different places. So, like, wherever you lived, you may only have gotten Arabs and nothing else when they first started in the 90s flooding you with mud. But then, over time, you, of course, got everything else. The Pajites, the Mexicans, the whatever, the blacks. You may have only got blacks at first. Poor Canton, Ohio, or Dayton, or whatever it was, Ohio, that got, whatever that sleepy little town was, that got 10,000 blacks all of a sudden dumped in their little town off these buses. Could you imagine that shit? And that's what's been happening all over Europe. Little towns of 5,000, they'll drop off 1,000 blacks in a town of, 500 or 2,000 people, where the blacks are literally like the town all of a sudden, I mean, just insane amounts of invasion they've done all over Europe to our people, all over Canada, all over New Zealand, all over Australia. I mean, honest to goodness, the only stronghold right now is Russia. People think Poland is holding off their borders. They're not. They've got all kinds of blacks and shit roaming around, streaming that they're fucking with white girls and stuff. They start fights with Polish dudes there and stuff, and the Polish people have been rioting too. They're having little mini, mini protests against the government and stuff. And so, anyhow, circling back Jen Psaki style, before I get to the chat and say hello, I just want to remind everybody that Sabbath is not only our day to acknowledge our gratitude to our holy God, which it is for that first and foremost and always and mostly, but also it's our White History Day, right? We get 52 of those a year, and if you celebrate Sabbath at the first of every month, every new moon, you're cool to do that also. It's not against the rules to do that, but it's also not required anymore. But we will be maintaining that again, or picking that back up in the new earth. So in theory, if you wanted to be a very staunch Sabbath keeper, keep the new moon Sabbaths as well. And so, if you add all of those up, we get more than 52, But the bottom line is you're still going to enjoy a minimum of 52 if you just keep the seventh day. Because remember, the fourth commandment doesn't mention the new moon Sabbaths. It mentions the seventh day. And it details what it means, that there's only 7 days of a week. And it tells you that 6 of them go before the number 7. And the 6 are all together the same amount of importance. That's your time for you to do what you need to do for the week, to make money, to become powerful, to become rich, to become famous, to become whatever it is you're trying to become. But the seventh day is holy unto God and set apart. That means it's or it's hallowed. That means it's set apart. It's different, it's separate, it's special. And that's the only reason why I stress that as much as I do, because it's the one thing white people are ignoring completely. And yet it's the one thing right in our own white people's instruction manual in our 10 most important laws. Remember, God has more than 10 laws. Homosexuality is an abomination. It's an abominable act, I should say. Right? It's an abominable act. It means not redeemable. Christ is our Redeemer. Something that is not redeemable means it's something that Christ isn't going to be redeeming, because after all, it's not redeemable. Yet, homosexuality isn't banned in our 10 Commandments. You know, it could be expressly labeled there, and it's not. But does that mean that homosexuality isn't against God's laws? No, he has one of those are his laws, that you can't be a homosexual. But the 10 most important commandments to God, keep in mind, it's Sabbath is number 4, and it's more important than all the other 6 beneath it, and it's more important than all the other laws, including homosexuality, which is a completely not redeemable act, are beneath it. It's number 4. That's how important it is. It's not even number 8 or number 10 or number 51. Not in the 10 Commandments, but somewhere in God's laws, like no homosexuality, you know. Instead, it's number 4. There's only 3 things more important than Sabbath. That's wild. When you think about how important it is, how close to the most important law of God's it is. And yet, all white people, high IQ, average IQ, and low IQ, all disregard the 4th most important law of God's total. Ultimately, it's all right. It's right in all white people's face. How can they not see it? How do they not see it? They honor the other 9. No problem. So what is our problem about the 4th commandment? It's the most bizarre thing, and I realize it's because we are no different than those Wigger kids I was talking about earlier, who are trying to keep and maintain an approval from the non-whites that they're surrounded by in school. It's that same thing with us. You know, we were born and grew up in Sunday worship. It was instilled into our people through generations of murder. And not murder by us, meaning our people were being murdered by the Catholic Church if we did not keep Sunday and were caught keeping Sabbath. And so, after many generations in a row of our people being murdered into keeping Sunday instead of Sabbath, we come along 28 generations later, 35 generations later, whatever it's been. And keep in mind, a lot of our people had already went back to keeping Sabbath multiple times throughout the generations. One of those times being when Martin Luther caused the Reformation. The Millerites, John Miller, they all started keeping Sabbath again. And they pointed out that, and they are basically the beginning of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And if it was still kept by John Miller himself and the Millerites in general that started the church off back then it was wholesome and proper and all white, 100%, because everything was all white back then. Every white organization, every church organization, all those things were all 100% white. Because our people understood, again, back then, a lot of them understood that Sabbath actually is our day, because our fourth commandment says so. So many of our people went back to keeping Sabbath. Not all, but a lot of them did. And then still a major portion, though, kept Sunday. And this is why we're critical of all the other Protestant churches to this day, because they all still keep the mark, as the Catholic Church calls it, of the Catholic Church. And they call it that themselves. They say Sunday is the mark of the Catholic Church. They could have used any other word they wanted, but they used that word. So, that's just a situation that our people grew up in our generations, as our people have already been keeping Sunday now for so long that when you finally face the reality of the fourth commandment that's been right in your face all along, and you learn to realize that you don't outsmart it. It's written in very specific words, and it's the way the sentence is structured for it. Each sentence, it's very specific. There is no way to interpret it. You hear all these cucks, these Christ cucks and stuff that talk about the Bible and a certain story of the Bible or whatever, and how it's interpreted or how it can be interpreted. There is no interpreting the Bible. The Bible is read just like any other book. You don't read some other story in some other book and just try to interpret it. No, you read what the book just says, plain as day. And if it's being metaphorical, it'll be obvious to you. Like when God says that he hears the blood of Abel crying out from the ground to him. Maybe God really can hear blood cry. Maybe blood and God can communicate. So maybe it wasn't even a metaphor in that case, but it could have even been one, right? So in situations like that, where it's inconsequential whether God actually can hear someone's blood crying to him or not, like we hear someone with vocal cords cry, that's practically irrelevant. It's not, but it is for the matter at hand. And so likewise in our situation, it doesn't really matter that it doesn't, like I hear all the time, the biggest excuse is always, well, that's what my whole family was raised up in. My parents, my grandparents, everyone I know goes on Sunday, so that's when I go. Well, that doesn't outweigh what our fourth commandment from our God tells us in plain words. And when the people say stuff like, well, it can be interpreted to be whatever day, no, it's written very specifically. And it says that the first 6 days, doesn't have to say the word first, but it says in sequence, 6 days shall you work. You're doing your thing for the 6 days, but the seventh day is set apart from those. And it's special and holy, and it's mine. And that's the day I want you to come visit me. God is our Father. Literally, that's what all of you call him, right? So when your Father says, I want you to come on such and such day every week, once a week, that's all I'm asking. That one day a week, I want your butt here. And we'll have lunch and we'll chat. You can fill me in on yourself. And God doesn't need you to do all that. He just expects it of you to set discipline your way. To set a rhythm of your life that is proper and pleasing to him. And ultimately, that is our goal. You want to be, we are God's creations, and we need to function as intended. So you definitely want to function as intended by God. If you don't, God owes you no allegiance. He owes you no apology. He owes you no sympathy. He owes you nothing. He can burn you alive, spontaneously combust you. You're a creation in the garage of his house that he made. You're just a thing he cobbled together. He could take you apart and reuse you for other things. He could put you up on a shelf and never look at you again. Give you no mind or attention ever again. Anything he does with you is not wrong. Anything he does with me is not wrong. He created us. We are his inventions. And the creator, the inventor of something, owes its invention nothing. Ever, at any time. If you invent something tomorrow, and some people like it, some people don't, some people can't live without it, some people will live their whole lives happily without it, but it becomes like a household item that people know what it is and everybody's seen it and few people have it, and you made a lot of money off of it. You could change that thing. You can update it. You can stop making it altogether. You could make them all and then never sell a single one and then melt them all back down to a puddle of plastic. And do you owe that invention an apology because you changed your mind? Or you went through all the effort to make this thing in your garage and now it doesn't function as you intended it to function. You made it to serve a certain purpose and it doesn't serve that purpose. So, do you have to apologize to this thing you made? Do you have to feel bad for it or pat it on the back or have any kind of empathy for it and sympathize with it? No. You can just take it apart. You can throw it in the garbage. You can set it on fire in a burn pit. You can do whatever you want with it. And nothing you do with it is wrong. God doesn't owe us anything. And we owe God everything. So when God tells us the fourth most important law of all of my laws I have over you, so that you function as I intend for you to, the fourth most important one is every seventh day of every week, I want you here. And I want you to say hi to me and tell me you love me. Let me know what you've been up to. Have lunch with me. Bring your children. I want to see them. I want to see my grandbabies. And it should be so easy for all of us to agree with it. But I realize the pressure of the world around us, that everything functions with Sunday being white people's day. The Jews really hoodwinked us with that one. We've been bamboozled, y'all. And it's embarrassing because, after all, white people truly are smarter than Jews. And we truly are smarter than the Asians as well. You know, a lot of these pro-white cucks, man, they bring up the IQ thing all the time. And I do too. I poke at the non-whites about their IQ and shit sometimes. It's true. But I do it more in jest, even though I really do understand the truth about it. True, that it's still true and factual, but I'm doing it more as like just fun little jabs. Whereas a lot of the more, maybe more is not the right word to start with. The not as far right wingers, right? The ones that aren't as far right as we are, that haven't developed as far along as we are yet, right? Where they're just getting into the pro-white thing for the most part. You know, they're just now starting to learn to side with white people on things racially. They're just now starting to tribe up. They, a lot of times, will lean on this, you know, IQ thing, and that steers them into being duped into following that and mentioning constantly as their argument against non-whites, which, by the way, I've already mentioned before, arguing with non-whites is a huge waste of your time. But if you literally have no better thing to do with your time than waste your time arguing with a non-white in the comment section or whatever on YouTube, they will get suckered into mentioning the bell curve. And I've already mentioned, and I need to make, that's another thing I need to make a video just about that. 4 or 5 minute long video, hit all the bullet points, done, 5 minutes flat. I need to do that. I need to make a video that explains the bell curve, the truth about it, in under 5 minutes. And if I get it done in under 4 minutes, I'll put in the title in under 4 minutes. And I know that sounds impossible coming from me, but when I do it in video form, I really can do it because I can just script out several bullet point sentences and then bang, I'm done. The video will only be a few minutes. And I'm not talking with the chat and all this other stuff. It's completely different when you make a video. You can bullet point it down real short, real sweet, and one of those needs to be exactly that topic. So, hold on 1 second here. Ooh, oh man, that's cold. Oh, I need to wet my whistle there a little bit. Oh, apologize. But anyway, they'll get suckered into mentioning the bell curve, right? The bell curve, and this is what I'll mention in the video when I make it. Bell curve is Jewish fiction, all right, created by a Jew. And the sole purpose of the bell curve, it only serves one purpose. You know how I'm always telling you that Jews use multiplicity, so they're always getting more than one benefit out of a thing they do? Well, that isn't always the case. Like, it's a good rule of thumb with the Jews, but it doesn't apply 100.00% of the time. Sometimes, once in a blue moon, they might only get one benefit out of a function that they do, right? And in this case, it perhaps is only that serves that one purpose. But the bell curve was and is Jewish fiction created by a Jew, and its only purpose was so that the Jew himself who created the fiction could declare that Jews are the most intelligent of all the upright bipeds. In other words, smarter than white people. And that's just not the case. That's not true. Like, every time I hear the words Israeli intelligence, you know what I mean? You hear people talk about that, like the Trump conservatives will talk about that, the ones that are still cucked about them and everything. You'll hear them mention Israeli intelligence and all that. I can't help. I literally busted out. It like fell out of my face one time. I laughed out loud in person. I forget where I was. I think I was, I don't think I was at work, but I was somewhere in public with people I knew somewhere. And this total Trump conservative dude, he's like, he was talking about something that happened in the war stuff going on, right? Somewhere in war stuff, whether it was when we attacked Iran or whatever. This wasn't all that long ago. So he was talking about a recent attack we had done on Iran or somewhere. And he goes, he's like, well, somebody else in the crowd actually mentioned something about Israel starting shit, and they shouldn't be. And he goes, Israeli intelligence already knew that they were going to do such and such and so and so. And of course, it's just like a Jewish fable for them to have the excuse to go attack another country that they want to start shit with. And so when he said Israeli intelligence, I burst out laughing, but I only did one like that, I can't replicate it the right way. So that was a bad reenactment there. But if you could just picture in your mind a good, natural, healthy, involuntary belly laugh out loud, and it was just one burst out, and just one syllable, and I caught myself and stopped. But that one, it popped out, it's like one of those like sneaky farts, that just one single bubble goes bup. Well, that's kind of what happened, only it was me laughing, and sorry for the bad example there. Anyway, or bad comparison. I should have thought of a more pleasant comparison than that. But let me get to the chat. I got to fire up a device here real quick. Give me a second, and I'll get to everybody. I had one going at the beginning, and then it died. So let me get her all fired up here. All right. Joey was the first noticer that chimed in this evening. Hello, God bless, and happy Sabbath. And he said good evening. Evan Smith, number 2. Hello, God bless you, and happy Sabbath to you. It's been a race between Joey and Evan and Slowboy lately, so I appreciate all of y'all racing to be the first one. That's nice of you. And Evan said happy Sabbath to everyone. So did Joey. So did Slowboy Whiteboard. Hello to you. God bless you, and happy Sabbath to you, dear. Let's see here. Rooster Cogburn. Hey, what's happening? Hello and God bless. Yes, it is cold. It's cold as a mug. And it's going to get worse, actually. Let's see here. Precisionetica. What's happening? Hello, God bless. Happy Sabbath to you. Deb of Christ is already here. Hello, God bless you, dear. Mr. Jack himself, everyone, is here. Wow. Very flattered every time he stops by to say hello. God bless you. And I did watch your thing the other night, even live, but I only got to catch the last, whatever it was. I got on there, and then maybe 10 minutes later, you were shutting down for the night. So I really did still kind of miss it, but I started it over after it finished and watched it. Great stream. And Godspeed to you. So crazy that you haven't gotten more subs back yet. I'm so disappointed in people not finding you yet. I realize your crowd that follows you is not the same crowd that views my channel. It's odd. We have a few cross viewers, but on the whole, when I visit your streams, I see a lot of folks that I've never seen, on mine. And even when I visit other pro-white channels, they have all completely different viewers than any of our viewers, mine or yours. So I can see why there's so much disconnect and everything, but it's just like, wow, I figured for sure a lot more than who have resubbed would have resubbed to you by now. In fact, if at one of these times, I'll repost one of your streams as a community post and just remind some people on my side, like, hey, in case you forgot, or in case you didn't know, Jack's back on. And the thing is, they should know, if they've been listening to you for a while, that you're going to start another channel lickety split. It's all they got to do is kind of rummage around with your name and whatnot. I realize Jack is a very super universal name or whatever to be searching on YouTube, but maybe that's another thing, everybody. Why don't we all, for Jack's sake, let's try to help come up with something. Of course, he might just want to come up with something on his own. So God bless you if you want to just come up with your own thing. But if people could just throw him ideas, maybe we come up with something to add to his Jack stream name. I guess maybe that's just all it would need to be, is just keep doing what you're calling it, but maybe make it one word. Because if you put two different words, Jack itself will bring up a bazillion things probably. And stream, of course, is a super universal word too, but maybe when they're put together, perhaps that is a good one. So whatever, maybe if everybody searches Jack stream as one word, though, perhaps it would bring you up, unless YouTube's going to shadow ban you, which, of course, once they figure out it's you, they probably will. But it's crazy, like recently YouTube has been letting our stuff be visible. So like when Jack posts a stream, it actually will show up on my feed if I just happen to catch it, though. And that's how I caught this last one. It was literally as I fired up my device and I hit the home page and I started scrolling and boom, there's Jack, And I was on the home page and it recommended him on the home page. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So it, of course, is probably only recommending him to people like me. But hey, that means he's actually being recommended sometimes to, people who are watching pro-white videos. So somehow the algorithm was working for him that particular night. I don't get notifications for anyone, and I think it's because I just have all that stuff turned off. But I always thought on the app itself that the app would notify you on the app itself, regardless if you have notifications turned off on your device and everything for like, comments and all that stuff. But, yeah, I never get a notification of anything if I set one for anyone. And I just attribute it to having all the notification stuff turned off. But I did get to see it on the home page. So that was very nice to see. And I hope that YouTube keeps recommending you, hopefully to other pro-white viewers. You know what I mean? So here's to you. I'm going to grab my drink. I'm going to do a toast to Jack being back. Jack is back. And here's a toast. Here are my ice cubes. All right. Real drink here. A nice cold one, too. So let's all toast to Jack being back and being able to stream also. That's really nice. Yet another little mini victory for white people where now you only have to have 50 subs, I guess, to start streaming. When I was finally given the ability to stream, you had to have 1,000. And really, what had happened was I had made it all the way to 1,000, but I hadn't quite hit 1,000, right? And out of nowhere, they lowered it down mysteriously without me ever knowing about it to something below 1,000. So since I was at 900 and something, it went ahead and started letting me. I had the option one day on my phone, and I was like, oh, wow, that's a new button. And I was able to use the live function. And who knows, maybe at that point it had dropped to 50 subs. I don't know. But that's really awesome for us white people who, especially in the pro-white circles, because every time we get booted off and have to start a new channel, you're stuck not being able to do lives until you have 1,000 subs again. That makes you work for like 2-3 years till you get, unless you get lucky and make really nice polished videos and one of them goes viral or something and you get a bunch of subs at once or something. But like one time I got like 2,000 subs off one video. I had one video back in the day, not on this channel, obviously, but on a channel before this one that wasn't pro-white yet. I posted a video and I got like 170 something thousand views on it. And I made 2,000 or something subs just off that one video, which sounds like a low amount of subs for such a high view count. But it's actually hard to get subs off people. A lot of people don't sub to people for just any old thing. Even if you have a half decent video with half decent information on it or any of that, you'll rarely get a subscriber out of stuff like that. And all of my videos were long form and had lots of information in them, and I showed the internet, tab for tab along. I'd basically surf the internet, and I would have all the tabs set up, ready to go, and I would just go from tab to tab, just boom, this website, now boom, here's this web page, and then boom, here's this web page, and I would explain out each thing that I was using as an example of pieces of proof of evidence for my side of the position or my position of the matter, and that one video got me like, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 subs, I forget what the number ended up being, but so it is possible for a pro-white person to come along and in short time, build a good sub base and start getting pretty good view counts. But it certainly wasn't possible like that, just 4 years ago. So it's been, at the beginning of Biden, when Biden first took over, and especially about a year into it, YouTube got real, shadow banny on all of us, you know what I mean? And started booting people off and everything else. Jack may have been booted off back then, I don't know. And somehow, thank you God, I survived through it. And really, I attribute most of that to being that I'm not monetized, you know what I mean? All these other YouTubers are monetized. And since they're monetized, YouTube uses that as making what they do be criminal, you know what I mean? Because they're trying to make profit from it. And that's the words they'll say, too. For example, and I'm just off top of my head, I'm just making an example. If some catastrophe happens somewhere, right? And some YouTuber makes a whole video saying that they think the whole thing was staged and that it was controlled demolition and that no one died and it's just a hoax. If they're monetized, YouTube can come along and not only delete their video and their channel and all that, but they could even allow somebody out there, whoever it is, could attack them legally, and say, and their wording they always use is, you were trying to profit from. That's the two words they'll use together. They'll say you were trying, or you were profiting. That's the other one they'll say. You were profiting from accusing these people of being liars, or you were profiting off the death of people. But if you're not monetized at all, they can't use that little word whip they have, that little word weapon. And so I think that's part of why I've managed to kind of skate along undetected. And it's not that I'm undetected. They know all about me. They know everything. I'm sure that there are probably 2 or 3 Jews dedicated to listening to the stream every time. And so that's fine. But the bottom line is we have, we have like, how do I say it? Well, we have more on our plate than any particular one of us is going to know how to deal with, like that's another thing that Sabbath is for, is every Sabbath, not only are we giving God the glory he's supposed to have and the gratefulness that we owe him and the time we're supposed to visit, being grateful for all he's made for us and all he's done for us, but also for us being grateful that we are part of his elect and pondering that on Sabbath, being grateful, thinking about the fact that, and thanking God that you're not born an Indian or a Mexican or black, you know. Instead, you were born a white person, a person that is going to be a part of the saved by Jesus Christ and live for eternity in a new earth only for white people, which is wild, but that's what our Bible says. And anybody who ever argues that point, you can bring up the fact that it says that in the new earth we will build and another will not inhabit. And only white people have that problem. Non-whites do not build, and then white people come along and go, ooh, we like your hut, we want to live in it. Remember that Russian cartoon that I played on the one stream where it showed the white guy shows up and he's an elephant? And really, it's the Jews. But they portrayed it as the white guy, the Christian, shows up. Big, fat elephant Christian shows up and goes, ooh, I really love this mud hut, this dung hut you've built. And then he forces his way inside it and shoves the nog out of his own hut. Well, that doesn't happen in real life, right? We know that only white people have a problem of building, and then non-whites come along later and start inhabiting, thanks to the Jews. And then white people move out, and wouldn't you know, all the area, neighborhood, city, whatever, that white people built, another inhabits now. And only white people have that problem. You don't see white people flooding into any Asian country by the millions, or any non-white country, for that matter, by the millions, or the 100,000s, or the thousands. Hold on a second. Anyway, I'm going to keep going and going if I don't get in the chat. Let me get in the chat here. Let me scroll back. Let's see. A lot of people saying hello and God bless to each other, which is great. Oh, but I didn't finish the point, though. But this third thing is that Sabbath is for fellowship. You know, it's for us to all get together because, like I was saying a minute ago, the amount that's on each of our individual plates is a lot. It is a lot collectively, too. But as individual white people who have to live on our own, separate from each other, without each other's help, all through the 6 days of the week, this seventh day allows us to congregate and chat and say hello with other like-minded people to remind ourselves that we are not a one-off person in the world all by ourselves with this kooky thought process about how things really are in the world versus what the whole rest of the stupid world thinks. You know, and really we're duped or stupid or whatever and misunderstanding ourselves, and thus we're all by ourselves in the world with this understanding. No, there are plenty of other people in the world, plenty of white people in the world who keep Sabbath just like you do. Every Seventh-day Adventist keeps Sabbath. So even though you are not a Seventh-day Adventist, and even though you don't desire to be a Seventh-day Adventist, and even though I am not a Seventh-day Adventist, and even though I've never even stepped foot inside a Seventh-day Adventist church ever in my life, I keep Sabbath, and they keep Sabbath. So that's millions of white people. In case you don't know, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I don't know how many members they have, but I'm sure it's well over 1 million. And so, you know, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is an enormous amount of white people who keep Sabbath, and they are scattered all across the world. So there are Seventh-day Adventist churches in Alaska. There are Seventh-day Adventist churches in Russia, probably. There are Seventh-day Adventist churches in East Europe, I imagine. And definitely in Europe, West Europe, I mean. And so there are white people who keep Sabbath all across our country, here in America. And so anytime you feel or start to feel like you're frustrated that you're the only person you know in the whole world that keeps Sabbath instead of Sunday, just cruise to or by any Sabbath church, any Seventh-day Adventist church on a Sabbath. And notice how the parking lot is packed full. And if it's a white area, that means 95% of that church will be white people. So 95% of those cars in the parking lot are cars of white people that drove there on Sabbath morning in their Sabbath best clothes, not Sunday best. In their Sabbath best clothes. And they are there honoring our holy God on the correct day with their children with them, singing songs to Jesus Christ. And it's beautiful. I'm sure it is. I've never stepped foot in one, but I know it is because it's our people singing and giving glory and gratefulness to our holy God on the correct day. Can't see anything more pretty than that. And I don't know why I've never went to one, to be honest with you. I think it's because I already understand that the church is like, well, that is why, obviously. Because I know that the church is already commandeered by the parentheses posse. And so, since they're already commandeered like everything else, I'm not inclined to become a member because they're very, and then also they're all about money. I've heard from people who used to be a member of the church and quit it because when they were at their brokest, lowest moment, the church knew that, and they were still pressing them for money every week. And so it's like, I don't know. I can't put myself in submission of an organization that I know is already commandeered by the you-know-who's. So that's why I have never stepped in one of the churches, because I know once I go inside one, I'm gonna fall in love with the people and knowing that they're my people and they're keeping Sabbath just like I do, and it's all so perfect for me that I'm gonna want to be there. You know what I mean? I'm gonna want to go every Sabbath, and I'll probably find the love of my life there or whatever, right? Because that's what can happen to a white man who goes to a Seventh-day Adventist church. You think I'm kidding? If you're a white man listening and you don't have a woman and you're finally ready to have a woman, a lot of guys, some of us are not in the not mood but mode to have a woman again since the last one we've had. And that same thing goes for ladies sometimes. They break up with a guy and then they want to be single for a while. Guys sometimes are in the same mode as that. And so not all guys are in that mode, but some guys have been single for a while. They've got themselves put back together enough to be with a woman, and they figure, heck with it. I'd like to start dating a nice lady. Where do you even find nice white ladies anymore? Well, imagine finding a white lady who already keeps Sabbath. And because she goes to Seventh-day Adventist church, she's already like, what do you call it? More like righteous, if you will, than a random street lady, even of our white people. And so, a Seventh-day Adventist church is a great place for a single white guy to start attending and meet a nice lady and be surrounded by, and it's not just for white men, this is for white ladies too. Gosh, if you white ladies that listen in, if you're lonely and want a man, and you need a good man and whatever, and you'd like him to end up being a Sabbath keeper, Just go to a Seventh-day Adventist church and get you a guy from there. And the thing is, he's going to want to drag you into the church. You're going to want to pull him out. I don't know how to tell you what to do about that circumstance. But hey, if you can end up with some white children out of the deal, and you pick a really great guy, you know, and with great family members, great parents who love you and you love them, and always make sure you're always good to each other no matter what, then your kids will grow up. You'll have several or many, hopefully, and then they'll grow up to support you and be around you and be good with you as you grow old. And you'll have the support of your parents and their parents, and everybody's parents will be good and happy as long as you never get, never cross them. Be always flattery, nice, bubbly. Don't take abuse from anybody, even verbally, but don't be rude to them. You know what I mean? Always be good to them. Always be nice to them. And this is just one example or one good idea, Of course, there are plenty of other avenues, but Seventh-day Adventist Church, that'd be your best bet right there. And who knows? Maybe someday if I'm ready to be with a lady again, I might just start going to Seventh-day Adventist churches, And if I end up liking one that doesn't have any ladies there that are my whatever compatibility wise, then oh well, I'll still keep going there, But I doubt that I'll start doing that until I'm ready to start infiltrating one of the churches, because that is honestly our best approach, is to infiltrate that church. But we're not ready yet. We need more of our people, because we need to do it all at once across the country. All at once. And once we do it across the country, basically at the same time, we all just join our local Seventh-day Adventist church that's local to us. And we report to each other on YouTube or on some Discord that we start or whatever. We report to each other, that we've signed up and da-da-da, and we become active with it, right? Utilize that as our communication, and we slowly just infiltrate the Seventh-day Adventist church till we're all kind of controlling it together, in a nice, like a digital island of people who know each other. And then we will have access to their enormous wealth that they've generated, and we will have access to their enormous annual budget, and we will have access to the power and influence that they have. Remember, all of the Freemason, Shabbos Goy, sellout, hippie generation of our elders who are in charge of those churches now, First Baptist, Assembly of God, Seventh-day Adventist, Lutheran, Methodist, all of those, as those hippie generation elders of ours die off, we, Generation X, are going to become the new elders, the new seniors, right? And so as that happens, we can be the ones who are already years connected in advance through a Discord or just communicating on YouTube, and taking over our local spots. And we do it all at once, though. When we all start at once, that will allow us to have this, basically this wave front, where it's just this like tsunami wall that just suddenly appears at the lowest level of the church, and just like a tidal wave, we all just together at the same time rise up through the ranks in the church. And I don't know exactly how we'll do it without becoming like real official members, and I don't necessarily think that we should do that. I think that we should figure out a way to be like a charming visitor at each of our respective churches. And we can get deeper into thought plans on that on another night. But that's just, I'm spitballing here just to give you ideas there of what have already been kind of in the works in my mind about how we would. Because remember, we need a large organization. We need to take control of a large, wealthy organization that has power, that has say-so. And as Generation X becomes the ruling seniors, the ruling elder class, we need to be in control, especially of the one and only Sabbath-keeping mega church that's worldwide, that's ultra-powerful, ultra-wealthy, yada, yada. That for sure needs to be the one we take charge of. And we need to also keep maintaining our Church of Israel in Missouri, because they are the one true church that is being kept the right way. You know, all the other churches that are pro-white, they keep Sunday. But the Church of Israel in Missouri keeps Sabbath. And they purposely keep Sabbath, obviously, because they understand that Sabbath is Israel's day. It's our God's day. It's not the day for the blacks. It's not the day for the Jews. It's not the day for Arabs or Indians or Asians. It's white man's holy day, or white man's God, which is the God of the Holy Bible. And so it's very straightforward. It's very clear cut. I guess I should have said clean cut. Let me get here in the chat. Sorry, I have not picked that up yet. Here we go. I'll just start at Precisionetica. Well, no. Let me scoot back a little bit further. Evan asked a question about a slide that says Rahowa in it. I don't know. I cannot answer. I apologize that I don't have the answer for that. Let's see here. Where was it? Rooster Cogburn said, I got 3 Thanksgivings this year. Last one is tomorrow, getting together with friends. Hey, good for you. Awesome. I had a nice, peaceful Thanksgiving. It was nice. It was comfortable, relaxing. Precisionetica said, exalt the Christ. Hail Christ. Because it makes the J's seethe. Absolutely true. Blessings to Stay White and to all the chat in this year of our Lord. Well, thank you very much for the kind visit. I appreciate that. Thank you, and God bless you as well. Let's see here. Some people saying hello to each other. That's great. Evan Smith said, gross out warning. I work in construction, and I have witnessed apartment complexes where the illegals all collectively piss in the bathtubs, where it marinates and shit on the floor. They are less, and then Jack said they are less than. Then Deb of Christ said, good grief, not a shock, but yes, gross. And then Evan continued, illegals also shitting in the bathtubs. I've seen an entire building basically rotted out and filled with mold from a leaky roof. They had to treat the crap out of that place and put new floors in. And then Evan continued and said, enjoy your ultra luxury apartment. Disgusting cardboard boxes for sure. Yes, that's absolutely what it is. It's, and I also witnessed exactly what you have said there. I will affirm that that is absolutely true. In new construction, the first thing that goes in, other than the framing, is the bathtub. And they don't put a sink in. They don't put a toilet in. but the bathtub goes in because the bathtub, I guess, is so big that they need to put that in before all the framing of the doorways and stuff gets built. So by the time I would show up there was a time where I used to rough in electrical. I would rough in 14.2 and 14.3 throughout, these different places. Sometimes it was apartment complexes. Sometimes it would be houses, but usually my stuff was apartment complexes. And exactly what he reports here is that they will fill the tubs up with pee. It's totally true. And that way they don't have to go all the way down the hallway and down the staircase, 3 flights of stairs if you're on the 3rd floor, and then walk all the way to the porta-john, cross the mud, whatever. It's a pain in the butt. I get it. But white people do that. And so if it was an all-white world still here in America, all of those tubs would be bone dry every day. And so anyone like me who would have to go behind these idiots and do work, I wouldn't have to smell the tub full of urine, and I wouldn't have to deal with all the mosquitoes from it and everything else if it's during the summer. And so I totally can relate and affirm that that's really true. Let's see here. Evan Smith said, I met someone who met a 21-year-old black in Ireland, brought from America to play nogball for 80,000 euros a year, plus room and board, food, transportation, all paid for by our Irish brothers. Cuckery. Yes, it is. And that's the problem with being a sports cuck, is you're, by being one, not you, but I'm saying you're as in generally speaking. When someone is a sports cuck, they are sponsoring the exact scenario here that you just detailed. Every single nog is fawned over by every white girl they come near. And it's because the white men are like, oh, crap, that's, Jarrell Williams, really? From the 49ers, really? And they're all talking about it, and the white women are like, oh my gosh, there's like this important nog showing up, wow. And then by the time he gets there, they're like, oh my gosh. And then even if no white dude talks him up before he arrives, just the fact that he gets announced as a ball player for the so-and-so, the Knicks, the Steelers, any pro athlete team that's been around for 100 years in America, long before this worthless boon. But he gets to live off that name. He gets to ride the laurels of that name since he plays for that team. So as soon as he walks in a room and anyone says, oh, yeah, he plays for the whatever professional team name, all of a sudden, every white woman has mega respect for this black guy. Huge respect. Huge respect. It would make you want to vomit if you saw it in public. And I know this for a fact because I've been around many black athletes in my life. Back in the day, I had to do a lot of sports. I had to do a lot of stuff involved with sports. And so blacks are, obviously been in sports even before I was born. They were already flooding blacks into all of our sports. But it was really bad by the 90s. And so because I had to be around them sometimes back then, I saw how white women would act, around them. And I would see and I would hear, the first time a white woman is told that, hey, this tall nog over here, yeah, he plays for the Jets or whatever. And the lady would be like, really? And they turn into this like ultra cuck, the worst of the worst you could ever imagine. And I hate to rag on our white ladies like that, but it's really true. And you don't see white guys freak out about famous black females. You know what I mean? We don't be like, oh, really? Nicki Minaj? No way! And like run over there, rubbing our junk, freaking getting all horny and wanting to see her ugly butt. You don't see why guys, wowed by black females, because we know that that's gross and unnatural, and it's just normal for white guys to understand that innately without needing to remind each other or have like sit downs or have a talk or have seminars about it or have any kind of communication about it. We just inherently know it. It's already written in the law of God is written in white man's heart. You know what I mean? And so we just naturally know right and wrong. And we know what our God expects of us and what our God what would anger our God if we do. And so since the law of our God is written on our hearts, we are the most aware of all the upright bipeds. Our women are not as aware as we are. And this is why the top noticers of the world, and I don't mean the ones that chime in here first on the stream, I mean overall, worldwide, YouTube noticers, yada, yada, whatever. The leaders are typically men because that's part of our gig of being the warriors and being the politicians and being the leaders of our religion. And the whole thing is that we also have to be, the most knowledgeable or whatever, the forefront leading edge of information when it comes to all those other subjects. Crud, I scrolled it too far. But the cuckery thing, it's because it's the sports cuck thing is like super massive problem with our people. I mean, so many white men still are ultra cucks about blacks all by themselves. And then the white women are too. So, you know how I was ragging on the white lady a minute ago, and it's totally true about our white ladies. The white guys are just as bad. They'll be like, oh, wow, can I get a picture with you, man? And get all excited and they just start acting like these goofy little kids sometimes. And I mean, this nog is like half their age, half the white guy's age. The white guy's done 100, the white guy's like an ex-Marine. He's done shit 1,000 times worse than this nog's ever had to do. This nog's lived a pampered EBT life and freaking was, patted on the head all along the way because he was, we fed it lots of free food so it grew pretty tall and, in its natural habitat in Africa, it would have only grown to be maybe 5'5", something like that. But instead, it got unlimited white people food, so it grew to be, 6'5" or 6'7" or whatever. And so it's a good enough height that it can play ball, and it was taller than an average person. So everybody's like, oh, wow, this tall black guy everywhere it goes. And so all his life he's been pampered. He gets arrested, he gets let out. He gets in trouble in school, they freaking sweep it under the rug. He goes to college even though he can't do 8 times 8. Can't spell whatever. Entrepreneur. But they put him in college. They gave him a free bachelor's degree, full ride through college, Negro college fund, all on Whitey's dime. And then they give him his free bachelor's even though he can't do basic multiplication. He can't spell 8th grade words. And then he can get hired anywhere as a token diversity hire. And they'll pay him more than they would pay you if you worked for that same company for 10 years as a white person. And they would expect utmost standards from you. You would need a resume. And your resume would need to have all the things correct on it. and it couldn't have anything missing. God forbid it's missing a whole section or something, because they would just toss it in the garbage, or you might not ever get a call back, or they might call you back and go, hey, you're missing this part. Whatever the case is, they expect all of the things out of white people. Education, math skills, writing skills, comprehension, proof of comprehension skills, all these things. Certifications, right? A lot of times white people are expected to be certified already in advance before they apply for certain types of jobs. But if Leroy comes along, or Jarrell, or even Jorge, who's not black, but he's just brown, but he's not white, comes along and says, oh, I just looking for a job, they'll be like, you know what? It don't matter. We can hire him anyway. He don't need to be certified. Just hire him anyway, And they'll be like, listen, you're going to have to get certified. We'll help you figure that out. And they'll just hire him. But they won't do that same thing. They won't do that big same favor for their own white people. And a lot of times it's because they are trying to diversity hire on purpose, to purposely hire non-whites into the company. But a lot of times it's just their cuckery. Like you were mentioning about, what was it? Let me look here. About sports cucks, And also remember, the sports cucks thing teaches yet another generation of our white kids to admire blacks for no reason at all, other than they chase a ball, or they throw a ball, or they catch a ball, or they do 2 out of the 3 pretty well, or whatever. They can jump really good. It's stupid. And our people are duped into, by being sports cucks, they're duped into causing their own kids and perhaps their kids' friends. What if you're a very influential type of alpha male white guy, but you're cucked about the blacks particularly because you're a sports cuck, right? So, yeah, you're this alpha male, Chad, whatever. But you always talk about, Tyrone Williams, recent stats, And so you're doing that in front of your son, or they. Let me go back to they, not you, not anybody in the chat. So they, the sports cucks, are talking about random blacks in front of their son and their son's friends. They see this guy as cool. He's got a sports car that's super awesome. He's got this big lifted truck, which is also awesome. He's got a pretty hot wife, Got the nice house. Got a boat, maybe. And so not only the son looks up to his dad, but the son's friend perhaps looks up to the dad. But he's a sports cuck. So guess what's going to happen? If those kids want to emulate homeboy's dad, they're going to become what? Sports cucks. That's the way it's going to be. I apologize. I'm nibbling on a quick snack. Just wanted a little quick pick me up. Let me get back here. Oh yeah, Deb was talking to Evan, or replied to what Evan said, and she said, "All the war veterans, homeless and needy children that money could have went to. Such a shame." And then she asked, "Is that metaphorical because there is life in the blood? Maybe." I think yeah, she was talking about when I was mentioning that Abel's blood cried out to God, or that God heard Abel's blood crying out from the ground. Um, well, it could be both. That's the thing, is it could be both. Plus, God physically could hear blood, perhaps screaming at him. Let's see here. And then Deb had to go to bed. Say good night, everyone. God bless you, dear. I hope you have a lovely night. I hope you have a wonderful Sabbath tomorrow. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here. I'm glad to be streaming, giving all of you a hello and a happy Thanksgiving. And I do apologize that I didn't at least send a community post with a nice Thanksgiving picture on it. But I knew I was going to stream tonight anyway, so I was like, well, I'm going to see him tomorrow night anyway. So sorry, I keep making noise. These snacks are so good. Okay. All right. I have caught up with the chat. I will now move on to things that have happened recently. Um, where to start? Hmm. I'll give you all the option. Do we start with Nick Fuentes and his different debates that he's had of recent? Do we talk about some of the black crimes that have been happening? um, I had another one in mind that I was wanting to talk about. Oh, I was going to discuss the handling of the lady being set on fire. I was going to just touch on that. And of course, I had a bunch of other things I was going to mention also, and hopefully they will come to mind as we progress through the evening. Since, I've just got started. We've only really started for about maybe an hour and 35 minutes now. So, we got plenty of time. And I know that a lot of you that have already chimed in early on will probably just doze off and, hop out of here eventually or whatever. And that's totally cool. If you run the stream all night, that's totally cool too. I'm not going to run someone's music video tonight. So there's hopefully no worry of the stream getting YouTubed. Other than maybe my thumbnail. Somebody might get mad about the thumbnail, but hopefully it won't get YouTubed, and we'll be good to go. And so even tomorrow, if you shut her down tonight and check tomorrow, the whole thing hopefully will be there for you. And I still have the other one, the one that they took down. They actually didn't delete it. So on my on my end, I can watch it. I can see it. I can see how many likes it has. I think I can still read the comments and the whole chat and everything that happened. But it's blocked worldwide. So so only I can see it, I guess. And I was going to just grab the URL while it's like while I'm watching it. I was going to grab the link and post it on a community post just to see if that weird little thing would work if y'all click on it. But I figured you would just click on it and it would say that it's blocked. But I thought, just in case YouTube uses a slightly different URL for the video for me to be able to watch versus everybody else. But nope, it's the same one, so it would probably just say blocked if you clicked it. So that's why I never bothered to do it. But it was a funny idea that I had about it. I was like, oh, that'd be awesome if it actually worked. Let's see here. Evan Smith said, or asked, question, brother. What's your opinion on bullying and its place in our society? I noticed that older generation folks, especially in construction, are such major freaking dickheads and insult us younger people as not being tough enough to handle it. I remember being younger and being attracted to the, quote, be nice and don't be racist, end quote, stuff. Because I saw how older people are, and I wanted to be. I saw how how older people are, and wanted to be nothing like that. My dad told me bullying was really bad in the 70s and 80s, and modern society blames a lot of evil on the way people were treated when they were younger. But yet, as I see how today's society, well, he didn't continue yet, but I get what you mean. Like today, it seems like, the generations are really soft. They don't know. They're not tough enough, if you will. And that isn't to say that not every single one, though. See, that's the thing is just because the generation itself on average is not only dumbed down but weakened physically, like they're soft or whatever, it still doesn't mean you would be if you're a part of that generation. You know what I mean? You could be one of the percentile that isn't, And so, and that's like what I said on my last stream, where I was talking about how I'm a part of Generation X and how if we don't cause the revolution to kick off in our generation's lifetime while we're still here, then we will go down, Generation X that is, will go down as being the biggest failure, the biggest coward generation of all of our white generations, of all of our white people. Because we have everything at our fingertips. We have technology for the number one. We have technology, which is wild. I mean, no one of our ancestors before us had all this, connectivity worldwide in a flash that we have by video, pictograph, whatever you want to call it. We can do any which way. We can do pictures or we can do videos. It's something that all of our ancestors could only have dreamed of, and for us to have this beautiful gift God's given us, and knowledge has increased everywhere, just like the Bible says would happen, we are going to be fools as Generation X. I realize you're not Generation X. I'm talking about we as in me and my Generation X are going to be total failures of the human race if we allow the world to continue on the way it is before we time out. Because every generation before us, our own parents, the hippie generation, who are the elders right now, the seniors in charge of everything right now, who are passing away slowly one at a time. And I don't want to see any of them pass away. I wish none of them ever would, just because I don't like seeing any white person pass away at all. But eventually they will age out, and it will be Gen X's turn to be the elderly senior citizen elders, that are ruling and in charge. And when that time comes, that's it. Generation X is almost done. So by then we need to have already long ago had our shit together and had the generations behind us rallied up and helping support us as we lead the charge and take our countries back. And so, Generation X are people just fart around after, they work, but outside of work, they're just, I don't know, they're not serious enough, I guess. I don't think. And, I realize that we've grown up in an anti-white world already in Generation X and everything else, and it was hard enough for us to just survive and make a life for ourselves and everything else. And so when we do have off time, we want it for ourselves to just totally relax and goof off and do things that pleasure us. But at the same time, we're at war right now. Whether we want to acknowledge that, whether we want to participate in it or not, bullets are flying our way. And if we don't duck and dodge and dip and dive and dodge, then eventually we're going to get caught up by it. We're going to get hit by one. We're going to get crossed by that random nog or our daughter or someone. If we don't say things to our family and friends, if we don't teach them the danger we're in, if we don't acknowledge it. And then, like Cody says, Mr. Wrangler Star, he says, act accordingly. Well, I agree. That is what we have to do. We have to act accordingly once we all, as a white people, realize what's going on. So, I realize it's frustrating. I realize it's overwhelming. I realize it's a lot on everyone's plate, like I had mentioned earlier, that as individuals, we have a lot on each of our individual plates, but as collectively as white people, we also have a tremendous amount on our plates, But that is what Sabbath is for, to come here, to talk about it, to say hello to other people who understand our problems and understand what's going on with white people in the world, and ones who understand why, understand that white people specifically are under attack by the non-whites, but specifically by the Jews who sick them on us like they're puppy dogs, And so, and by the way, somebody, actually it was Queen Lily Gaddis, I think, yeah, it was definitely her, said what I call them and have been calling them forever, which is bioweapons of mass destruction. Those are the Jews. The non-whites are the Jews' bioweapons of mass destruction. Well, wouldn't you know, like, I don't know, 5-6 days or 5-6 videos back, whatever it's been ago. Maybe it's been more than that now. Maybe it's been like 10 or 15 days, 20 videos back or something. She called the non-whites bioweapons one night. And I'm like, yes. I like jumped up and down about it. I was like, hallelujah. One of the bigger YouTubers, has caught on to that and realizes that that's really what they are. And so it reminded me that I've never actually elaborated to you all about that statement itself, right? So, when people who are on the far right, like myself, would read that for the first time, they would go, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense, because they're biological beings, they're a being that has like it's free. It has free will and it's automated on its own and the whole thing, right? Hold on 1 second. Stay by. Sorry about that. Watch out. So, uh, when people hear or read, I should say, me in the comments, or they hear me say on a video that the non-whites are the Jews' biological weapons of mass destruction, or bioweapons of mass destruction, as we call it. A far right person would hear that and go, yeah, it makes sense. That's cool. I get it, and think that that's clever or something. And then, yeah, but really it's actually a little more deep than that and more accurate than they realize it is. And I have mentioned this before in another stream, but I just want to touch on it again more specifically and more whatever. I want to detail a little more. Non-whites are what caused diseases among white people. In other words, in an all-white country, if non-whites and none of their things are ever brought to our land and introduced to our people, including none of them themselves, and none of our people go visit any non-white lands and touch the things they touch and drink from the water they've peed in and bathed in and all those things and eat their food that their nasty ass fingers prepared for them. If white people never go near the non-whites, white people do not get diseases. And what I mean by that, yes, white people still die of something as they get super old, right? As you get to be your 80s, 90s, whatever, that's pretty old. And at that point, you're going to eventually get something will go wrong with your body that will cause you to be timed out, And that's sad and horrible and terrible, and I hate death, and I wish that none of our people ever had to die. It's heartbreaking for me, even for a white person I don't even know. If I see a white person in person die, I mean, it would be heart-wrenching for me, And so I'm already not a fan of it as is. And and so where was I going with that? Sorry, I'm reading the chat to see if it would trigger my memory. Oh, yeah, and Evan had continued on with that statement talking about it actually goes, it had scrolled without me realizing. So it actually continued on a little bit more than I thought. So I got to back up where I can actually see the rest. Oh, okay, it wasn't. I just didn't continue on those last three. And I'll get to them in a second, but anyhow, the what was we talking about? Gosh darn it. I can't believe I forgot what we were talking about. Well, yes I can. I'm just so pumped and I've had a million things going on in my mind, especially today. I had like a crazy day today. Not crazy, but like pretty fast pace. And anyhow, I in a moment it'll come to me. I've just had so much going on today. My brain can't zero in right now on things that I was just talking about for some reason. And I'm probably a little loopy because I've been up since I think 4 a.m. is when I got up today. So I'm coming up on, well, no, I'm not. It's only 12:30. So eventually I'll be at 24 hours. Um, so yeah, I'll forget what I'm talking about sometimes if I get too far off side topic there or whatever. But it'll come back to me in a minute, I'm sure. And the reason I was scrolling, that's why I was scrolling back up though to see if I could remember what we started off with there. Um, oh yeah, the Generation X thing. I was on Generation X there for a little while, and how we'll be like the embarrassing generation if we don't accomplish this shit. And so, as we become the elders, it's really our responsibility to right this ship back upright. Um, the hippie generation before us, our elders, they actually had balls, just like all the generations before them. They went and fought wars for the Jews. They thought they were doing it for America, of course. So, but we know now that all the wars are just for the Jews to kill off more of our white people. So, but they thought they were going and fighting for America, and they did. And they like volunteered, and they didn't have to draft. They volunteered, and they still had a draft back then, but it was only because the Jews were using full humiliation ritual on white people back then that they could at the time. And one of the things they could do was use the government to force the draft. And they had to also, they felt like, because there was actually a whole uprising of the hippie generation movement that happened in our elders' lifetimes, who are all mistakenly called boomers right now. Boomers are all long dead. And now the oldest generation alive are the hippie generation. And the hippie generation were our parents, Generation X's parents. And they are all in their 70s, 80s, 90s, some in their 60s. And so those are the ones who are the hippie generation. They are in charge now. They are the senior citizens. They are the elders. And they are the ones with all the power and all the old money. And so, and the top inheritances and all those things. And so they are the ones in control right now. As we take over, if we have all our ducks in a row, and when it finally comes time, or in other words, we uncuck enough of the ones who are going to inherit the big companies and inherit the political seats through their family lines and all these things, we need to find those people. We need to explain to those people that they need to snap out of their bullshit, and the whole nine. Like, we need to show them, look, for your own children's sake and your own family's sake, regardless that your grandpa sold y'all down the river for fame and power and money and whatever. Now you got it. Now let's flip that reverse Uno card style, and let's make you, be able to do good instead of bad with the money and power and positions that you're already going to inherit through your family line, And if we play all of our cards the right way, we could actually be the generation that, instead of becoming a huge embarrassment generation, we could actually be the generation that causes the revolution to kick off exactly as we're supposed to be. Because after all, our generations before us, all of them before us, had balls of steel, ultra bravery. Our own generation of hippie generation also did. And that just because a whole portion of them became hippies, right, and resisted the whole war effort and all, they call it war effort, the whole war scam and all that stuff, really those hippies were ironically based, right? And of course they weren't truly based, but they were ironically based because, ironically based meaning they weren't really based, but they were based to some degree because they were against the war. And being against a war is always meaning you're against what the Jews want. And so, of course, the Jews took over the hippie movement right away and started funding concerts and flooding the hippie movement with gobs of unlimited drugs of everything imaginable, pills and snortables of all manner and all these things. And that the hippie movement just took right to it because they're like, yes, the whole thing is we're just sitting around smoking weed and eating shrooms and eating acid. So heck yeah, we'll try your pills. Heck yeah, we'll snort that cocaine. Heck yeah, we'll do this and that. Heck yeah. And then heroin became introduced. So heck yeah, we'll do the heroin. And next thing you know, the hippie movement were a bunch of druggy F-ups, right? And so we had a lot of our elders who are senior citizens now who went through an enormous like druggy phase in their life, and that led a lot of our white people back then to be brought really low, where they became like, look at the ones now they have a bunch of our white people on fentanyl. And they're all bent over like zombies all over the sidewalks of these major cities and stuff. And, when you see that on a YouTube video, it looks real surreal enough to you to knowing that it's for real and everything else. But imagine standing there in real life and walking around the corner of a building and there's like 7 or 9 white people, all bent over in crazy positions, just froze that way while they're wasted on fentanyl or whatever it is, and it's really happening to millions of our people, and it's been happening all through the time. They did it to the hippie generation who are now the seniors, and even though they had ultra bravery, they were still cucked about the Jews and about non-whites in general. They were browbeat. Remember, they resisted though. The hippie generation, let me restate that. The hippie generation was the first generation that was cucked about non-whites. The boomer generation that gets blamed for everything, they actually resisted. They're the ones who were called the evil old racists that just need to hurry up and die, like the blacks would say on the TV shows and stuff. That's what Oprah said. That's what some fat black twat on The View said. That's what blacks were saying all the time, is these old white people just need to hurry up and die. When they were saying that 10, 15, 20 years ago, boomers did still exist at the time. And they were in their 80s and 90s and late 70s, and they were dying off. And the blacks were celebrating it back then, 15, 20 years ago. They were celebrating it on TV. They were celebrating it on the internet when the internet first came out and all this stuff. So... or when they first started getting on it, I should say, in 2000 or whatever, 2005. And so, all the way back then, they were already celebrating that about the boomers dying off, and now they're all gone. But the boomers, because that's why they said that about the boomers. They would have said it anyway. You're going to get called racist whether or not you ever were. But the boomers actually were. They were the last generation that said nigger to them. And they were the last generation that actually locked arms and blocked their schools to protect their white children from the blacks, busfuls of blacks that pulled up to be dumped off in there. It's like dumping a bunch of alligators into your kid's classroom and being like, oh, yeah, this is totally normal. As soon as they did so, they forced our boomer elders, the boomers that get blamed for everything, even by our own right-wingers, which is totally ridiculous. They stood arms locked, elbows and elbows locked, and had the National Guard pointing rifles right at their foreheads, point blank. And they stood there and resisted with that to try to protect their white children, us. Of course, I wasn't alive yet, but you know what I mean? Us white posterity, from having blacks in our schools, ruining our development. And that was the whole purpose of it. Is not only is it multiplicity again with the Jews, it's multiplicity. So not only are our white girls going to be raped and attacked by the blacks all the time, so will our white boys. And it'll cuck the white kids into following the blacks and idolizing the blacks, therefore idolatry of the blacks, maximum humiliation with that. And then on top of all of that, we pay for everything they do, right? We pay for their education. We pay for them to replace us at our jobs and in the college positions. Um, and so you add it all up, and there was another one that I was getting to, and I lost it because the same problem. I'm a little loopy, I guess, tonight. But the other thing of the multiplicity. What was the other benefit the Jews get out of it? Oh, that white people cannot develop, right? Our kids can't develop while they're busy defending themselves from blacks, right? So not only does it cause a lot of attacks and rapes and everything else, but it causes white kids to just flat out not develop to like as they're supposed to, right? So because they aren't developing as they're supposed to, they grow up dumber than they're supposed to. They grow up with less information, less ability to store knowledge, less memorization skills. They haven't been pushed physically or mentally as hard as the generations before them were. And now, a younger generation hearing that and hearing me say that would say, oh, well, we're the ones having to grow up, with non-whites all around us. So we're actually having to deal with a lot of physical and mental stress and trials and whatever. And that may be true. But in all white America, we had, as we were being invaded, starting with the boomers who actually the last generation who actually defended us, and then the hippie generation welcomed the non-whites. Oh, you're down with drugs, so are we. And so they got our people into all kinds of drugs, trashed tons of them, and they became the parents of Generation X. And Generation X was not only eventually, once we got into high school age, they flooded us with blacks and forced some of us to go to black schools like me and whatever. But they also, that whole point of that was to not only put us under attack and under constant threat, but also to force us to be stunted from developing all the way. And thank you, God, I was already 1,000 steps ahead of what our school curriculum was teaching for the year I was in at the time, right? And I was just riding through each year. I wasn't trying to do a bunch of the work in advance and graduate early and move on to the next year and like try to graduate 1 or 2 or 3 years early. We had a savant kid in our school who did that and graduated by the time he was like 15 or something. But I wasn't interested in that. I had the hottest girl in the school, and I'm not making that up. I really did. And any of my friends will attest to that too. And so I was happy as heck. I was like, even though I hated the school and I hated that I was having to go to a black school, I hated that her and I had to go there. She was mine and it was cool. So I was enjoying that. And otherwise I hated the school. And then eventually when school was done and her and I were high school sweethearts still. So we, left high school and were together as a couple after high school. And, all through, I don't know why I mentioned all that also, but the bottom line is the point was it was to develop us. And thank God I already just was mentally ahead of what was being taught. So as soon as we got out of school, I went right to going and work and actually I was already been working for the place. And I made it totally official after my schooling was done. But I had already been working for the place that I was working for a couple of years. And so I moved out early and I continued my school, but I went off to do what I was going to do. And then I finished school also. And everything worked out. It worked out really good. And just other bad circumstances came along, that weren't stemming from that. But if if I had just been some other person that God didn't bless as much, right? I say all that to say, if I had just been some other white person that just, you know, doesn't think real hard about anything, doesn't really care much about anything other than whatever's right in front of me, and eating 3 times a day, and oh, I feel weird or I hurt, I better go to the doctor, and do all the like things, right? But not really like ever put any mental effort into excuse me, into what's wrong with our world, what's happening to our people, what's going on with crime in our countries, all the stuff. If I paid none of it any mind, and I was just, I could have been just any other body, right? And if I was, I would become either a victim, right? And I still could be. I could still be a victim someday to the non-whites, Any of us could be, any day at all. But, if I was any other just random person, and I had been, forced to go to this black school, not had the most beautiful girl in the school in love with me and all this stuff, which made my experience a billion times nicer than it would have been otherwise. It would have been abysmal otherwise, and instead it was euphoric because I had her. And at the time, you know how young girls are when they're all about their man, so she was like all about me, laser locked on me. No one could touch her. It was amazing, right? It was like a great time. And so, but otherwise, if it hadn't been for her, it would have been an absolute total hell dungeon, and it still was. But I had her while I was in it, which was crazy. And so, had I been any other ho-hum guy that didn't have a beautiful girlfriend at the school to keep me, entertained, and been just in a dungeon full of blacks like I was, and all these things, my development wouldn't be anywhere near what it would have been if I had been that same ho-hum mentality guy, but went to an all-white school. Right? So I know that was all long-winded just to say that point, but it's really true, because if you're raised in an all-white school, it's orderly, right? Everyone follows rules. Everyone obeys. Everyone acts upright and proper, because after all, that's how white people are. And because white people have a code of discipline and all of these things about our behavior, we put our litter or our garbage in a garbage can. We don't litter. When we use a place, we leave it the way we found it, or even better, perhaps. We clean up after ourselves. If we go to the beach, or we go to the park and we set up a picnic, we pick up all of our garbage and take everything with us when we leave, and it looks when we leave as though we were never there. When we see a tree and it has 40 pieces of fruit hanging from it, and there are only 4 of us, we each pick 1, perhaps 2, perhaps 3 for each of us. And at the end of it all, we've only picked 12 total, and there are still plenty of fruit on the tree for everyone else that may come by, rather than, say, a non-white that comes along and takes every single one of them. And so a ho-hum white person develops much, much greater in an all-white school because of the order and the good behavior. And that doesn't mean there isn't a bully here or there. That doesn't mean that there wasn't a fight here or there after school. But we didn't have all of the have nothing to lose non-whites to compete with as kids. We had other white kids who their parents also had, jobs and a house with a mortgage and a car payment or 2 car payments perhaps, and they had everything to lose. And so they don't want their kids to be ruined. They don't want their family ruined. They don't want to have any kind of financial, legal trouble that costs them a lot of money. So white kids knew to act right, and we just did inherently anyway, for the most part. And any white kid who didn't was punished, you know. And so now, because we've been flooded with so many bazillions of blacks and all those things, remember, they did away with paddling right before they flooded us with blacks. Did you notice that, Generation Xers that may listen to this? Any of you who are Generation X should remember that they did away with paddling students at school, and then just a year later, they started flooding us with blacks. And in my case, they started scooping up whole bus loads of us white kids from our school and driving us clear across the world to the other side of town, to the black side of town, and making us go to school there. So it was a multiplicity attack. It was for our girls to be attacked, for our boys to be attacked, and for none of them to be able to end up developing correctly. Think of all the time and memory and attention your white daughters will give to memorizing rap songs and memorizing booty dances of the blacks. And that's times millions of our white girls, you know, who are cucked into desiring to learn those things. Sorry about the noise. Microphone's close by it. My bad. Sorry, I snuck in one more pick-me-up. It was sitting there looking at me. I had to get it. All right. Of course, none of us are going to have all the answers, all right? I won't. None of the other awesome YouTubers will. But collectively, as more and more of us honor our God's holy day again, God will bless us more and more as we collect more and more of our people back together. He will bless us more and more with better ideas, more clever solutions. And eventually, one of our white people will come up with the most amazing new thing. It will be God blessed, and it will save white people, because what it will do, it's God that's saving white people, right? But it's God blessing this thing that white people will invent. Some white guy will invent, right? And it will give white people this crazy advantage over the non-whites. Like, I don't want to say superpower level advantage, but something almost that extreme. And how it will come into existence is because of necessity, all right? Because now, from now on, white people are under threat. And all that matters now is how many white people ever figure out that we're under threat before they're killed. And so, as time progresses along here in the future, more and more white people are going to discover through the internet and through things happening to their own family members that white people are under attack. And as we build up a stronger, we've already had, they'll find all these videos that we've had, already posted about white people and all of our situations and what solutions are there and the whole thing. They'll find all this stuff years from now. And for them, it'll be new info to listen to. They'll be like, wow, all this info will be new to them. Just like when you folks may have found truther videos from 10 years ago, 13 years ago, that spilled the beans on a whole situation like 13 bloodlines, or all the alphabet organizations being owned by the Jews, or that the Vatican is owned by the Jews, or that the Jews have owned the IRS the whole time and created it, and it's privately owned by them, or, whatever thing that you learned about that's from a super old video on YouTube. That's how this info, the pro-white people info, will be for the new baby truthers in the future. This stuff will be, for them, it'll be new vintage. You know what I mean? So, and it's important. That's for another thing, just another sidecar here is, that's another reason why it's really important that you don't ever sponsor or talk about or use as reference any non-whites or mongrels, because in the future, our generations after us, we don't want to dupe them into thinking that it's okay to accept some nogs and accept some mongrels and let them speak on our behalf and grift us as though they are on our side. They are not on our side. They are grifting white people. That's what they're doing. Officer Talmud and the Nog twins and, Candace, whatever her name is, and her own click noises. Yeah. We don't need any non-white or mongrel to speak on our behalf. Not a Byron Gaines, not a Myron Gaines, not a Tate brother, we don't need any mongrels, and we don't need any non-whites at all either. So, never again. Even if you have before, that's all right. We forgive you as white people, as based white people. We forgive you. Don't ever do it again, please. Never vote for any non-white. It does not matter if the alternative is a woman. It doesn't matter if it's Hillary Clinton. If they pit you two options, Hillary Clinton or Vivek Ramaswamy, you pick Hillary Clinton. If they put Hillary Clinton against Kash Patel or fucking, I don't know, whoever, any other brown, any other brownie, or black especially, Byron Gaines or whoever, you pick Hillary Clinton. Did you hear me? You pick Hillary Clinton. And really what I'm saying to you is made up, because I'm always telling you that voting is a hoax and has been since the Jews took over our country. They don't count your stupid goyim votes. That's what they call us. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm saying that's what they would call it. Stupid goyim votes. And they won't count them, other than to count them to figure out where they need to flood with more blacks. Anywhere that has a lot of Republican votes, they know, this is a highly concentrated area of white people right here. We need to flood this exact spot with several busloads of Somalians. So that's what they use voting for, to figure out where to flood white people with blacks, And nowadays, it almost doesn't matter where you live, because I don't live in a concentrated area. Yes, it's all white people around me, so you could say that's concentrated, but it's so rural that there's very few people around, And yet, just several miles down the road, they cleared an entire forest and built a huge neighborhood. You know? So now instead of being, 44 miles away from any blacks and non-whites in general, now I'm only like, I don't know, 5 miles away from some blacks now. So that's not cool, obviously. I enjoyed being super far away from any non-whites and being around only white people. And now, thanks to voting, and thanks to the census that people foolishly, surrender their info to, all that is Jews collecting data about white people, and they use that data while white people don't collect data about the Jews and use it against them. The do collect data about us and use it against us. And so they're playing a game against us while we're never playing back. Imagine sitting down at a game of chess and you just allow your opponent to keep taking turn after turn after turn, one after another, just keeps taking turn after turn only on his side, and you just let your stuff sit there. Eventually, they work their way over to you and take all your pawns away, and then they just bang, hit your king, and that's it. You're done. It's like in no time, you're done. Why? Because you didn't do anything. You just sat there and let them take turn after turn, stab after stab, move after move, and never did anything back. Anyway, mongrels and non-whites, don't refer to them ever. Okay, we don't need any nog wisdom. There's no such thing as dung hut wisdom. And mongrels are the lowest upright biped. They're not even on God's totem pole if he had one. They wouldn't even be in the grass around the totem pole if God did totem poles. And I even mean it metaphorically. So, mongrels are something God did not create. And so he's not down with that. And he already declared that, and he already declared what he's going to do about mongrels. And it just so happens Jews are mongrels, by the way. So they're caught up in that whole thing too. But in the meantime, use every Sabbath to be not only grateful to our God, but also be grateful to God that you are a part of his elect, and that every Sabbath, 52 of them a year you get are white history days. And that's something you can do on Sabbath too. You can study white people's history. You can pick a time of white people's history and read about it. Read about a king that ruled over a kingdom in Europe in the 400 ADs, the 3rd century. Read about something that happened in the 6th century or the 8th century or the 12th that white people were up to. Read about something BC. And I'm just making up things. You could read about future stuff that white people are up to. It's just that you know how it is now. If you read into about modern and future stuff, they always like throw nogs in it where they don't belong and stuff in their articles. But, or maybe just in the pictures with the articles, but still aggravating to see. But all the things of the past, those were all white people. And we already know that. So everything you're reading is about only white people, Whatever king you're reading about, whatever kingdom you're reading about. And so that's a thing on Sabbath you can do, just to mix it up, just so every Sabbath you don't do the exact same stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can mix it up. One Sabbath can be study of something in our past. One week can be something about the future, studies of things in the future, new technologies that have been coming out. But you're watching that stuff keeping in mind the whole time that you're observing it to be grateful to God that He's given us this incredible ability to, enjoy, um, be able to create, what you call it, to be able to create technology, if you will. And I hope that more of you manage to influence more of your loved ones and close friends, whoever, to start appreciating Sabbath, and not only appreciating it, but appreciating it as white people's day. Because it's very important that we distinguish it as being white people's holy day. Remember, right now, the Jews have white people completely bamboozled. And not just white people, they actually have all the world's non-whites fooled about this as well. So they have commandeered our identity and commandeered our day along with it. And that's why the Church of Israel, like I was talking about a long time ago, is the one true church left in our country that actually keeps Sabbath. There are Christian Identity Church that, because they understand we are Israel, they also coincide with keeping Israel's day that our God says is our holy day. They keep the fourth commandment, and they teach their entire congregation to do so as well. And all the other great Christian Identity churches are wonderful churches, wonderful men, wonderful women. I love those people in those churches, and those people are my people. But sadly, they have, for whatever reason, not figured out the super obvious fact of the fourth commandment. And I've heard every excuse, from the calendar's been changed, which it hasn't. Yes, the number was changed, but the day of the week was never changed because of commerce and because all the other. Only one race changed the date for ourselves on the time with the number itself. The number, though. So instead of the 3rd, they made it the 10th. You know what I mean, or whatever. Or instead of the 1st, they made it the 10th. Or instead of the 10th, they made it the 1st, and that was it. But the day of the week never changed. If it was a Wednesday when they changed it, it stayed Wednesday that day. They just changed the number, and so the day of the week has never changed since Adam and Eve. It's never been lost. And that's because all the other races were still maintaining the day of the week that was happening at the moment. And so the day of the week has never been lost. And and that's since Adam and Eve, the day of the week has never been lost. And so we know for a fact that the Sabbath every seventh day is definitely the seventh day that God's talking about at the end of every week. And that we are keeping the correct day and not accidentally keeping the wrong day, thinking it's the seventh day every week when it's not. No, the Sabbath that we're keeping right now is the beginning of the seventh day of a 7-day week. And this is the correct day. And we are good to go by finally getting as many of our people to keep it as we can. And I am so looking forward to the day, and I hope it comes in my lifetime, where I see, the bulk of our nation, start keeping Sabbath. That's going to be so mind-boggling. And if it happens without us having to take over and infiltrate and take over the Seventh-day Adventist Church, then hallelujah. That means even better, because that will be a tricky, project, but I think it is one of our best approaches. But if we could get it to happen without that, if God could bless us to pull it off without having to do that, well, hey, that's even better and amazing, and I'm all for it. Whichever way God decides, I'm all for it. But imagine in our lifetime, y'all, seeing all of our people have a true reformation like Martin Luther caused, but even greater because we now finally start keeping all 10 of God's 10 commandments again as white people. I mean, think about that. Think about the magnitude of that and what that would mean with God being pleased by our effort. And by our effort, I don't mean pro-white people who helped convince them to do this, but I mean by all white people's effort who are all collectively keeping Sabbath again. You know, God will be so pleased. Remember, I've mentioned so many millions of times in I don't know how many streams and videos that God reacts with us in real time. You don't have to live your whole life a good person and never get any interaction with God, never get any blessing from God while you're in this mortal trial, and have to hope all the way to your death and die hoping that God is going to look out for you in the afterlife and that it wasn't all for nothing. That you could have been a bad guy. You could have got a lot of women if you were willing to commit crime against them. You could have had all kinds of money if you were willing to be a thief, but instead you lived a good life, never got any blessings, and you die hoping that you will get a blessing in the afterlife for living a good life. And you just die hoping that that's the case. No. God will bless you in real time in your life. If you start keeping God's Sabbath, truly keeping it only to please Him, not so in hopes that He will give you a sign or give you some kind of blessing. You can't do it for that reason. God's not dumb. You're not going to fool Him. So you have to keep Sabbath for the correct reason, which is that you want to function as intended. As God intends for us to function, so that you are pleasing Him, the way He expects by obeying Him. And white people have been keeping 9 commandments, no problem. But by not keeping the 4th commandment, they're mistakenly not keeping the 1st commandment and 2nd commandment, really. So we need to... you hear the blacks a lot say, oh, we got to get back to our roots, or they'll mention roots or whatever. Well, that's what white people need to do. We are trying to get our people back to our roots. Our roots are Sabbath keeping, that Christianity is our race, which you once knew as Israel, which is a Justin Martyr quote. And I don't agree with a lot of what Justin Martyr said, but he was right about that sentence. Just 125 years ago, we had world fairs where we had non-whites in different zoo exhibits. You know why? Because our white people understood, even in 1905 or 1899, 1898, whatever the world fairs were, they knew at even just 120 years ago that only white people descend from Adam and Eve, that our Holy Bible only applies to white people. And the majority of white people would never dream of going overseas to some third world shithole and trying to impose Christianity on them. And rightfully so, because God assigned them their own gods and gave them their own religions. He didn't do all that just to then eventually 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years later expect us to go travel the world and tell them, hey, that religion you've had for thousands of years that our God gave you back in the day, yeah, forget all that. You're going to be a Christian now like us white people. Why? It's not meant for them. So that would be stupid. Their religion glorifies and edifies them. Our religion glorifies our God, but edifies us through glorifying our God. So we end up, because of glorifying our God, we end up getting to spend eternal life with him in a new earth without any crime happening to us, without, you want to talk about our girls being able to walk freely wherever they want in the middle of the day or night, where there are no bad parts of town. You want to talk about never having to worry about your kids playing out in the yard or anywhere. You want to talk about never having to worry about predators working at the schools with the kids or anything. Well, that's what the new earth is going to be like. For eternity, we're going to be able to live in an all-white world where we never have to worry about one single anything non-white attacking any one of our white children ever. And people always wonder about the children thing, and what I say is the children thing is going to be endless. God told us his ultimate plan was for us to be in number like the grains of sand on the beaches of the earth. Well, that's trillions. That's quadrillions. You know? And so the only way we're going to make numbers like that is in the new earth. Every person that did live during the 6,000-year trial is going to be blessed to have heavenly children or new earthly children. And we will be free to have endless amounts of them. So each man may end up with, who knows, thousands of children. And as crazy as that sounds, it's really not. Our women will not have pain giving birth anymore. It won't ruin their bodies anymore. It won't, it might not even take 9 months anymore. You know, like up there, it may only last a week or two or a month or something, and boom, got a brand new baby. And then who knows, a month or 2 or 3 goes by, and boom, you can get pregnant again. Who knows? And I'm just, that's all just off top of my head kind of ideas there. But eternity is going to be perfect. And it's going to be so awesome that you're never going to want to miss a day of it. You're never going to want to miss a moment of it. You know how like a fiend, whatever. I don't like using this. Probably bad, another bad comparison tonight. But you know how like a crack fiend is or whatever, where they're like super Jones, and because they are now suddenly, they've come down off their euphoric high, and they don't want to live without that ever, not even for one moment. And they're willing to get rid of whatever they have of value. They're willing to trade it in a flash just to get another few seconds of that same euphoric feeling or whatever. That's how bad you'd be jonesing if you would miss even 1 minute of eternity once you've experienced it at all. It's going to be so euphoric for us and so amazing that you're not ever going to want to miss. You would be terrified. Just the thought of missing 1 minute of eternity would terrify you if you ever got to go experience it, say, just for a day. Like, hey, welcome to eternity. I'm going to give you a tour around. I'm your guide, Angel Peter, or I'm your guide, Angel whoever, and I'm going to take you around the place, and then after this day is over, you're going to wake up back at home. But, yeah, I just wanted to show you around, let you see what eternity is like. You'd wake up the next day and be so depressed and sad that you can't be there anymore, just because you got that taste of it and got to experience it and see how great it is compared to what we're used to or what we could have ever fathomed. And you'll be jonesing that bad for it, like a fiend is when they don't have their euphoric high anymore all of a sudden. That's how bad you'd be jonesing to go back to eternity. So all these fools that I've heard over the years, and I've heard a few, say the same stupid kind of idea like, oh, eternity sounds boring. I don't want to live forever. What would we do for eternity? Eventually you'd do everything and then get bored as heck, doing the same crap all the time. Man, it's going to be nothing like that. It's going to be absolutely mind-boggling, euphoric. Every moment's going to be so awesome and so amazing. You'll be so glad that you obeyed your Creator like you're supposed to. You'll be so glad you did. You'll feel so blessed, and you'll feel so grateful. Right now, a lot of you folks, I'm sure, feel like you're fairly grateful. Of course, you strive to be as grateful as you possibly can be, right? But realistically, that all of us could be even more grateful than we are. That's what we all need to stay struggling with all of our lives, to make sure that we are as grateful to God at all times as possible, especially during our tough times. That's when it's easy to be a backslider and fall away from God, or feel resentment, like, why haven't I been helped enough, or whatever. And so it's very easy to to sucker your own self into that, mindset. And so instead, that's when you got to be even stronger and be even more grateful to God, and double down. That's really what you got to do. You got to double down and say, nope, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God anyway, because he let me make it this far, to even make it this far to ever have this problem. And so even though I have this problem now to overcome, at least I made it this far, all thanks to him. And so, it's basic step-by-step process. Refer only to our own white people before us, the elders before us who led the way, who've given you the information long ago in advance, who you can get all the quotes from you ever need to support white people's position for our well-being, for our, supremacy of our countries. A lot of people would read that title I put for tonight's stream, and they would think, oh, this guy is an edgelord, or he's trying to be one. He's trying to be rage bait people. Instead of clickbait, it's a rage bait title. But it's not. White people are supposed to be supreme and enjoy full 100%, quote, white supremacy, end quote, throughout the entirety of all of our white countries in Europe, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Russia. And if I missed one, sorry. But everywhere white people created, white people are supposed to enjoy 100, not 91 or 86 or 55 or 51, because that's 1% more than half. So it's technically the leading or the ruling margin. No, 100% full supremacy, open white supremacy in all white countries. That's normal, it's natural, it's expected. And anything other than that is abnormal, suicidal, idiotic for the white people themselves to allow. And that's exactly the situation we're in, a suicidal, thus idiotic situation. And we have to change that. We have to rectify it. We cannot just let non-whites continue more and more and more taking over more and more of our government positions and ruling over us. Another solution is for us to all start running for office in our local governments. And I'm thinking perhaps judges, because they're obviously allowing any dipshit to become a judge. All you have to do is just be elected. You don't have to know one thing. You don't have to have a bar card. You don't have to have any kind of law skills, which would be jurisprudence. You could have zero. No law knowledge whatsoever. And you can just be elected a judge. Now, granted, the Jews decide every politician, so you have to get around that hump. I don't know how we do that, other than maybe just at the local level is probably all we could really do, especially to start ourselves off. And then it'd have to be very local to you. And it would feel like you're never going to make it from there anywhere bigger anyway, so why bother? And that may be true, but perhaps being in charge around your local area, you could prevent some catastrophic crap from happening to white people, right? And who knows? I don't know how much more time we have. Nobody does, but we're definitely running out of time. We're already out of time, to be honest with you. We're way past out of time, and we have been for like 40, 50 years now. But it's between all the people we're losing every day, we hear about things like Irina Zarutska, and we hear things about these other, sweet ladies we've lost and boys we've lost, like Austin Metcalf. And grown men we've lost, our elderly people we've lost. I have on the slideshow here a sweet elderly couple that was just recently slaughtered by a couple of you-know-whos. And so despite all of that, we have to keep, knowing all of that, we have to allow that to remind us that we are God's people. That's why they hate us so much. Jesus Christ said they're going to hate you because of me. Now, why would Christ say that when it looks like, from non-whites' perspective, especially the blacks' perspective, a lot of blacks that attack white people are wearing a Christian cross when they do it? The black is wearing the Christian cross, and the black goes home that night or at some point and says, "Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I robbed these white people." But they're praying to black Jesus because they've cosplayed themselves so hard in their mind, and they've coped so hard with that lie that they know is a lie in their mind to try to give themselves artificial importance and to artificially conquer the white people in their own mind to give themselves artificial confidence. They are praying to a God that doesn't exist. And so they're not real Christians. But the bottom line is, so because of that, it appears as though the blacks are Christians, though, and therefore they're only really attacking white people, right? They're not attacking because they hate Jesus, because after all, if they're wearing a cross, that means they pray to Jesus. But again, they don't pray to Jesus. They pray to imaginary black Jesus that they know isn't real and doesn't exist, and that is just a Wakanda fantasy. And so they're not even serious about it, even though they cosplay to themselves as though they are, to keep this artificial confidence about themselves. And so, but that makes it appear as though, okay, it's only an anti-white thing, not an anti-Jesus thing, but really they actually hate Jesus. And the reason why is because non-whites know that Jesus is only coming back to save white people. They all know this. Non-whites understand this already. And you would think, see, the thing about white people is White people don't think racially at all, because for generations we've been browbeat into thinking that that's a bad thing and shameful, even though all non-whites think about their own race all the time, loudly, openly, have organizations for themselves, even in our own countries, have caucuses for their own race, even in our own countries. You know, they get in our government and they start speaking in their own language and fly their own flag and advocate for their own people at the podium in our own country. And so, you know, somehow, though, white people are still suckered into thinking it's bad if we support our own race openly at all. And which is why I want a white caucus. I want to create a white caucus. I really do. I just haven't figured out a way to do it yet. But I definitely want to. And I want it to be called the White Caucus or the White People Caucus. I want it to use the word white because that's what they call us, because that's what they know we are. And that's what the Bible calls us. All throughout the Holy Bible, we're called fair, very fair, exceedingly fair, white and ruddy, whiter than snow, whiter than milk. Sorry, we were called purer than snow, whiter than milk. And so, white is our descriptor. We are whites, they are non-whites. And so that's that. We are the people of light. P-O-L, pole. We are people of light. And they are not. They are absent of light. And that's why there's no such thing as brown light. And that's why there's no such thing as a brown flame. And that's why there's no such thing as a black light, truly. Whenever you look at a black light, it's not black, it's a purple light. And purple gives off a reactive resonance to the color white. And so it gives off, it makes white look really bright colored, you know. And so we call it, ooh, look, it's a black light because it's doing the opposite of white. It's making white brighter or whatever. So they call it black light, but it's not. It's a purple light. And everyone knows that. So there's no such thing as black light, and there's no such thing as brown light. There's no such thing as black fire, and there's no such thing as black or brown fire. So, since there isn't, they are not people of light. Only white people are people of light. And that is what our descriptor will be. It will be called the White Caucus or White People Caucus. And I definitely want that to be a thing. And until we take over our government and country all the way again. And once that happens, then we won't need a white caucus anymore because there will be no such thing as non-white caucuses ever again. We will, when we restructure our country, we will ban all non-whites from our country, all non-whites from our government by default of not being allowed in our country. We will extremely limit our trade with only certain non-whites. We will do trade with Japan, and we will do trade with China, and we will do trade with practically all of the Asian countries because they don't give us trouble. We will do limited trade with Saudi Arabia. From now on, we're not going to buy trillions of dollars of oil from them. They're going to go broke as a joke because we're not going to buy practically any oil from them anymore. And that's really all they have to offer us. So until we start needing to buy sand, and we have plenty of that here in our own desert, we aren't going to need to give them money anymore. We won't owe the Jews $38 trillion anymore. We will be waiving all of that to zero, just in a flash, just on a signature of a piece of paper, especially if I'm given control. That'll be day one. That'll be one of the very, very first things I do is I will sign that we owe $0.00 to any and all parties involved with declaring that they are a part of the 38 trillion supposed dollars that we supposedly owe as white people, as America, to the Jews. In the same day one, if I'm ever in control, I will abolish all tax of income. Sales tax is fine. We need to pay sales tax so that we can pay for roads and bridges and infrastructure and pay for the police and pay for the fire department. And that is what those will be for. The sales tax of everything will be to pay for those things. There will be no property tax. I will abolish that day one also. So income tax and property tax will both be abolished day one. As will all alphabet agencies. There will be no more FBI or CIA or CDC or I will abolish all of the alphabet agencies, and I will also abolish like ATF. Useless. Don't need that. We'll abolish that. I already said, though, all alphabet agencies, and that literally means every single one of them. That would happen day one also. I would also abolish any and all, I would ban any and all NGOs. There's going to be no such thing as an NGO anymore, or anything that functions similar to an NGO. I will ban all immigration of any non-whites to ever exist in our country. All of this will happen on day one. I will just sign. You know how Trump sat down on day one of presidency when he started again, and these people were lined up with like a stack of books to have him sign, and each one of them was a different bill, a different executive order or whatever, and he was just boom, one after another, boom, one after another. That's exactly how it will go for me day one if I'm ever given control. I will sign each of these things one after the other. Bam, 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 bam. I will immediately, on day one, do away with all foreign aid. There will be no such thing as that anymore, and I will also have a law passed. I will force legislative branch to pass it on their end so that it's totally official, that all of those things, NGOs, non-white caucuses, and foreign aid are all theft from the American people, a.k.a. the white people. And it will say both things. It will say American people, also known as the white people, or white people. And we will specify that all through our new government documents, our new refounding documents, and or reformed documents, however we want to name it. And we will also specify that, the limited trade we do with non-whites will be extremely vetted. It doesn't have to be super heavily taxed, but it does need to be taxed a little extra. Import tax, we can just keep calling it. We don't need to do tariffs, but like an import tax that applies to just anyone that we buy from. But we have to vet them very well, make sure that there is no espionage or smuggling or trafficking of people or any of this kind of stuff going on with it. Also, day one will be a shoot on site, no questions asked by any white person in America. If they see a non-white invading our country, that way all non-whites know that they can't even be seen by a single white person, or they could be shot by any of them. A white child, a white lady that has a gun, anybody that's armed and can shoot them. That will happen on day one of presidency. And I may give them a window to self-remove, right? You know how we've had all this talk about self-deporting, which is total nonsense, but I will actually probably give them a window, like you have 48 hours, or you have 4 days, or you have... I don't want to give them much time because I don't want them to have time to prep up and try to battle, and fend us off, or, hunker down and try to hold their position or any of that. Because, again, I would like this to happen as peacefully as possible. I don't want anyone to have to die, and I know that's a far-fetched thing, just like Jared Taylor and everybody else. It's a far-fetched thing, but... Oh, I just remembered I was talking about the bell curve earlier. That's what I was talking about when I forgot what I was talking about. We'll get back to the bell curve being Jewish fiction, claiming that Jews are smarter than white people in a minute. But I had already said all that anyway, so I guess I pretty much had cleared that point up. But that is where I had lost my place, I think, a long, long, long time ago, like an hour and a half ago. Anyway, so back to what we were saying just now, though. I want this transition to happen peacefully, like Jared Taylor's always dreamed of, and like what's his face hopes for. But I know it's not going to happen that way. So what we can really try to hope for is to minimize it as much as possible. If we can just mitigate the numbers of deaths on both sides, white people and the, ones we're having to drive out, that would be ideal. So if on day one, if I'm given control, I would give them maybe a 2-day window or something, or 3-day window, and that's it, to be gone. I don't even think 4 days. I think 4 days would be too much. That would give them too much time to try to hunker down or hide somewhere or whatever. 2 days is just enough for them to hurry up, pack their shit, mail some shit off at the post office to their homeland, mail off their crap that they managed to acquire while they're in America and Whitey world. And then, go ahead and let them pay the post office to mail all their crap off to their homeland. And then they get on a plane and they're out in 48 hours. That, to me, sounds reasonable, right? But everybody after 48 hours, it's shoot on sight. You know what I mean? Any white person that sees anyone that isn't white, just blam, friggin', and they won't be arrested. All that'll have to happen is the cops will get called, the cops will show up. It'll be only white cops because all the other non-whites will be gone, including the ones that were ever cops or judges or politicians or anybody that was non-white. They'll all be gone, so only white cops will show up because that's all that will exist suddenly. And when the white cops show up, they're going to look and see, oh, yep, that's a brownoid. Good job. They'll high-five you, and that'll be that. You'll just go on your way. There won't be any paperwork to have to fill out or any of that mess. We're not going to go through all kinds of gobs of legality that's useless when what white people collectively agree we want done was done. There's no reason to be upset. There's no reason to be doing paperwork and having to make this white person defend themselves for their actions of defending themselves. Oh, I saw a non-white on our land, so, I was armed and I took care of the problem. I terminated the threat. And so that's it. That would be all it is the cops would just nod their heads, high five, or shake his hand, good job, nice shot, whatever, and we'd be all on our way. Everybody would go their, the cops would go on their way, and the dude would go home, and that would be that. So, and I don't want it to be that way. That's the way it has to be in order for the law to really come into effect and for them to truly take us serious. And some of them will not take it seriously. Some of them will say, F your 48-hour notice. I'm going to be here anyway. I'm either going to hunker down or I'm just going to roam the streets freely, and you can shoot and kill me if you want. And if that ends up being the case, so be it. And in those cases, those wild ones that just want us to try to do suicide by white people, whatever, like they do with suicide by cop or whatever, if we do run across some ones like those, we could just tranquilize those. Shoot them with a bear tranquilizer or whatever type of animal is appropriate that will safely do an upright biped of a couple 100 pounds. Tranquilize them. We lock them up in a cell, because the taser is bullshit. We just need to tranquilize them. That's it. So you tranquilize them, boom, throw them in a paddy wagon, get them to the cell, boom, get them to the temporary cell. Eventually, boom, you get them to the barges, boom, they're on their way once the barge is full, they're on their freaking way. By the time they wake up, they're just shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, chin to chin with other non-whites and traitorous white people, wiggers, other ones, all in the same boat. And that's where they'll wake up and they'll already be loaded. It'll be too late for them at that point. So I say tranquilizers is the way we need to go for being as humane as possible and safe on white people as well, because after all, if white people think they've shot and killed some non-white and then they go roaming around over there to check the non-white may actually be still alive and start blasting them, whereas a tranquilizer, you can kind of see a mannerisms of something if it goes down. Not saying something that dies when you shoot it don't have mannerisms that are obvious when it goes down. But it's almost harder to fake falling over like you got shot and killed and pretending you're dead than it is to fake that you've been shot by a tranquilizer, because with a tranquilizer, you keep trying to function. You keep trying to hide or run or dodge or hide and shoot and hide and shoot and hide and shoot. You keep trying to do whatever you were doing, whatever you had in mind. And as you get drowsier and drowsier, your motor skills become worse and worse. And it's a lot harder to fake that because it drags on for a while before it finally kicks in enough that, boom, you just fall over and you're out. So it's much more noticeable than, say, shooting bullets at someone is. So I say the tranquilizer is a great solution and a more safe for even white people solution, not just for the non-whites. And then that's it. We cage them up. We get them out of here. And, I would have all that begin on day one, but I would give them, say, 48 hours to get their butts out of here, get their stuff mailed off, and then get on their way. And they need to pay with their own money, whatever they've already got. No like program from our government that's going to give them more of white people's money. None of this conservative bullshit where they say, oh, I'll pay them to leave. I'll buy somebody's ticket to leave, whatever. Any black wants to get out of here, I'll buy their ticket. No, we've already bought them enough stuff. All right, and they're already sitting on enough of our money still. Each one of them individually is sitting on plenty of our money already. So they can take the money they already have and they can spend it themselves to get the F out of our countries. And that includes Europe and Canada and, New Zealand and Australia. So, it's been pretty wild lately with the right wing. Not to change subjects too hard. I don't want to shift gears too far on us, but just so I start moving along to other topics. The Nick Fuentes thing's been pretty funny lately. He's getting a lot of attention, right? And I realize a lot of people say he's a Mexican. First of all, if we walked him into a room of Mexicans who've never heard of him, if we took him to, say, Mexico City, right, and started walking around, and every Mexican that looked at him didn't know who he was because they don't have the internet, let's say, and let's say they just sit around all day selling fruit on the side of the road in their little village or whatever in Mexico City, and let's say so they have no idea who Nick is. Not a single one of them would ever look at him and think he's a Mexican. Why? Because he doesn't have black hair, and he doesn't have brown eyes, and he doesn't have brown skin. He's white, he can blush, and he has white people hair and white people eyes. So that tells me Nick is actually white. So Fuentes is a Spaniard name, by the way, not a mongrel Spanish name. And also, not only is Fuentes a Spaniard name, but I don't even think, and if Nick ever listens to this, don't be offended by this, bro. Don't be offended by this. This is just real deal Holyfield, logical. I don't want you to go flipping out and questioning your mom, okay? Just take this to your grave without ever hinting this at your mom. I want you and your mom to have good relationship all of your lives, and with your, quote, dad that you think is your dad. But here's the real deal, Holyfield. If his dad looks like a black-haired, brown-eyed, brown-skinned Mexican, it's not his real dad. It means his mom married that guy who's a brown-skinned, brown-eyed, black-haired Mexican, your typical one you'd expect to see. But really, she cheated on him at some point early on in their relationship with a white guy and never told him, and he never had a DNA test done and just accepted that Nick is his kid, even though miraculously Nick looks like only a normal white guy who can blush and has white people hair and eye colors and texture of hair and has nothing non-white about him, right? So somehow she's pulled that off without being busted, by her Mexican hubby. But that's the situation if his dad is supposedly a Mexican. If it's his mom that's supposedly a Mexican, which I haven't heard that. I've heard it was his dad. And I could have been hearing bad info. But if it's his mom that was a Mexican, well, I don't know. Maybe he was a baby that was swapped when they were at the incubator room or something, and they just think they were given their baby, and really that dude belongs to some other white couple that doesn't know that he's missing. They have some other baby and think it's theirs, and they're like, we don't know how this brown baby ended up being brown, but whatever, it's our kid, the hospital says. So he was either switched at birth, and he has a white family somewhere that doesn't know he's, belongs to their family, or if it's his dad, like I had originally said, then it really isn't his dad. It means it's his mom cheated on what he thinks is his dad with a white guy. So anyway, clearing that up about my position about Nick Fuentes, I still don't agree with a lot of what he says. I mean, he has a lot of L takes. Like, his biggest L is saying that he would vote for Kanye, and the whole cucking to blacks thing, and like, I'm a real nigga, and he knew that would make all the blacks be like, oh shit, that's crazy ass little white boy, and like cheer him on and shit. He knew that he could edgelord that and get away with it, and it worked for him. But the thing is, that's still cuckery to blacks. He doesn't need their approval. Why bother doing that just so you can get blacks' approval? It didn't win any extra approval of mine. I didn't care that he was on there calling himself a real ass nigga or a real nigga. That don't mean anything to me. So, and meanwhile, it shouldn't mean anything to any right-wing white person. So all he was doing that for was a stunt to get the blacks to like kind of like him more, I guess you could say. And I think that was just a low-hanging fruit publicity stunt to try to woo them for no reason. We don't need blacks on our side. We don't need mongrels on our side. There's no such thing as that anyway. So for him to hope that we can unify the blacks with us, like it's us against the Jews, y'all, or whatever, none of that's going to happen. The blacks are willing, happy participants. They're gleeful villains for the Jews, happily attacking white people, knowing that the Jews will set them free. And they relish in this crime they're being allowed to commit against white people, because to them, they've convinced themselves that it's revenge on all the bad stuff that white people did to their ancestors. Now, they don't know who the hell their dad is, but they know that their ancestors 5 generations ago somewhere was slaves. So, and it's probably true. That's why they're here. But still, it's just funny that they don't even know one generation back, like their dad, much less generations ago. But just the fact they're black and in America, that means their ancestors were boated here, and that's how they ended up here. And they're embarrassed by that, and they want to be able to tell white people, no, you go home. So that's why they've come up with their new grift, and they've called themselves FBA. If you ever want to look that up on YouTube, the letters FBA, Foxtrot Black Americans. That's what it means. Well, it's not what it means, but I was trying to give you radio code, and then I blacked out there. I didn't know what letters or what words to use for the letters, but it means Foundational Black American. And basically their new grift is that they was the Indians, that they was the feathers, and they were here even before the feathers, because the feathers rejected them. Like the Cherokee Nation, they tried to claim they was Cherokees, and the Cherokee Nation put out an official statement that the blacks have nothing to do with them, and we are not blacks, and they are not Indians. And so basically shit on their fantasy, just like Egypt's government did with Kevin Hart claiming that they were Egyptians, blacks were Egyptians. The Egyptian government corrected him about that publicly. And so same deal, though. So Oh man. Um. Oh gosh. But that's their new grift is they call themselves foundational black Americans, and that way they can tell white people, no, you go home. We was in America first. Right? And they think because they can say that based on their new lie, that, white people would be like, oh, pff, bummer. Okay, you were here first, fair and square. Okay, we'll go home. Um, so, that's one you can look up one day to see their new little, because you'll see lots of videos of blacks, using FBA as their acronym for it and everything, and lots of videos about their new, they basically share lies among each other, new ones. They come up with new ones all the time to add to that lie. And, fake stories, fake victimhood stories from white people supposedly treating them bad or treating one of them bad. Fake achievements they supposedly accomplished that they never really did. Like fake. We're definitely going to specify over and over again, everywhere we put Americans, we're going to put AKA white people. And we're going to put that everywhere just to like thoroughly concrete in everyone's mind that way there's no way. And I've mentioned before, we won't acknowledge once all the non-whites are out of our country, any one of them that tries to prospect us with some kind of merchandise they'd like to sell to us, or fabric or whatever they'd like to sell us. If any of them have a name that is a white person name, they are to be disregarded. They have to use some kind of third world shitholder name to approach us with, no using Jesus, which is in text form is